All in favor?
Aye.
Public comments on items which are not on tonight's agenda. Is there anybody in the public that would like to speak? No? Okay.
Madam Chair, I'm not in the public, but I would like to speak.
And do we have your name and address?
Michelle Mateer, 302 Pine Street. I have a few updates for the commission tonight, but I want to make sure everyone knows about. One, which isn't very fun, I'm sorry. Making sure everyone knows about the water meter bypass line issue that we're having here in town. So it's been brought to Minturns' attention that we need to lower our water loss numbers. And as we go through replacing everyone's meters in towns, we've been finding an awfully high number of water meter bypass lines. So starting July 1st, even though we're able to right now, starting July 1st, we will be imposing a fine of $2,650, which is through the Colorado Revised Statute, for any bypass lines we find that have not been brought to the attention of Public Works, and Public Works will be helping to remediate any of those issues. So we ask folks that please work with Public Works in advance. Give Arnold a call, 376-4270. Is that it? 376-4270? Okay. Or whoever that number is. The second thing, which I really want to thank the Planning Commission for those of you that chimed in and provided feedback. Last Wednesday night, the council unanimously approved to keep the virtual attendance option for Planning Commission, for council, for public, and for staff. So of course, at all times, it's preferable to be in person when able. However, the option is open to attend virtually so that we can have as many folks within our group participating. Several of you provided feedback for that, and I'd like to say thank you because as a recommending body, it was very helpful. Thank you very much.
Anybody else? So we'll go to any planning comments.
Madam Chair,
We have someone?
we do have somebody in the audience who would like to speak.
Okay.
Go ahead, Greg.
Greg, please state your name and address.
Greg Sparhawk, 245 Pine Street. I just wanted to give a shout out to the town and Public Works for the cleanup day. That was it's not, I know it's not a major event, but it's, I think it helps out a lot. It helps out a lot of people in town. So just wanted to, seem like it went smoothly last weekend. Just wanted to say thanks.
Public Works, if you're listening, we all say thanks. Thanks, Greg. Planning Commission comment. Yeah.
I just would like to thank everybody that worked on the cleanup day as well. And also let everybody know that we're still moving forward with our fishing access stuff this summer for our Fishing is Fun grant stuff. We're waiting for the high water to come down up at the Boneyard, and our testing of our dirt grade that we put in there on the handicap accessible fishing spot is doing what we hoped it would do to kind of show us what the high water, this year is about a half of normal. And so we're going to be, we kind of know where we want to be with our concrete grade when the water comes down, and we're going to be moving forward with all of that stuff this summer. And we hope to finish all of them by the end of the summer. And then also just want to let everybody know that a couple things on the music hometown front. We are going to be having the Minturn concert series again this summer on Thursday nights, starting, I think July the 8th is the first one. It's the first Thursday after the 4th of July. And I think there's 8 or 9 of them that'll go all summer on Thursday nights like usual. And then we are also having, Cindy's been working on the 4th of July celebration, which Minturn Style will be on the 2nd of July. And that's a Friday night, Friday day. There's going to be music all over town all day long, starting, I think, around noon, 1 o'clock. There's going to be posters around that have everything, all of the different artists that will be playing, bands that will be playing. There's going to be bands at the saloon, on the deck, and there's going to be bands at Molly G on the deck, as well as on the amphitheater stage. And then I think there's a late night set at the saloon as well. So there's going to be a lot of fun to be had on the 2nd of July.
Michelle just corrected us, it starts at 3 o'clock.
3 o'clock. So, yeah, there's going to be music and food and beverages and adult beverages and fun. Once again.
Well, I have just 2 small things to say, and that is to make everybody aware of the fact that there is a bear in town. I have not seen him, but I have seen his damage. I have seen his droppings, and I have seen the trash cans turned over already. So he's hanging right now around this area where we're at in downtown, so be cautious. And the other thing is I've been out to the boneyard with a neighbor walking her dog. And for those of you who are interested in wildflower hunting, there is a patch of wild clematis out there. Good luck finding it. You don't get a prize, but it is neat. Anybody else? Chris? Elliot?
I'm all set. There's a couple baby moose too that we saw last night. There's 2 baby moose, brother, sister, sister, whatever they are, but they were in the parking lot at the Forest Service yesterday.
Down.
And I didn't see mom, which was, you know, we stayed for quite a while to see if mom was on, but they were
Dow Junction.
in Dow Junction.
Wow. I had somebody yesterday who'd love to see
They're
that
very, very young. Yeah. So keep an eye out.
in the parking lot. Okay. So there's today's news.
Yeah, animal updates.
Animal updates. So next, 998 Main Street, the Station Art Gallery and Studio renovation. Scott, are you up and going?
I am still not, but I will do my best to introduce the file and the applicant and let Greg Sparhawk, who's ready to go, take you through the plans. This is a major renovation of Lucero's gas station at 998 Main Street. It's kind of a big deal. And there's also a minor addition as part of this renovation. In the packet, you have a staff report that outlines the zoning. This is Southtown.
Hold up.
Yes, ma'am.
No, never mind. I'm sorry. I apologize.
It's a Southtown character area, commercial zone district. This is a commercially zoned lot. And the applicants intend to maintain commercial uses on the property as well as an existing accessory apartment that's in the building today. So the existing uses really are being repurposed, but the core use, commercial or mixed use, is remaining. With the proposal, there is improvements to the site as far as additional access drive and some parking. There's parking being provided in front of the building on the Highway 24 side as well as behind the building. As you can see from the plans that were submitted, there are additional roof forms that are being introduced and additional or new materials and colors to this building. It's a pretty significant renovation to this whole Lucero's gas station building. So staff is in favor of the renovation. We are proposing or recommending approval with conditions. That's really the meat of it. I think Greg can take you through the plans. The applicants are Lynn Fider and Woody Woodruff. And again, this is lot 3, Lucero subdivision, 998 Main Street. So unless you have questions for me, I'd like to have Greg take you through the plans and the vision for the property.
Please state your name and address.
Greg Sparhawk, 245 Pine Street. Before I get into kind of the technical overview, Woody and Lynn are also on here. They're the owners, and if they'd like to say something, they can, or they could wait till after I'm done to chime in, whichever they would prefer. I don't see him coming off, so I'll let him if they would like. Oh, there he is.
Here's your video.
I don't see our video though.
You gotta turn your video.
That's okay. We can hear you.
All right, there we are. Hello, gang.
Hello.
As you know, we've been looking for a place to do a serious gallery here in Minturn. We had another project which we got along, quite a ways along. You guys got to look at it, but when this other one came up, it just made more sense. So we ended the one that was on by our house and are planning to do this. I think that, my wife was founding chairman of the Vail Valley Arts Guild, and we have a lot of those connections. And the town has been trying to figure out how to get an art, what's it called,
District.
an art district here in Minturn. So we think this would be a real asset to the town. And we've been working with Greg to try to get it to where it'll work. And Greg can answer your technical questions, unless you have any for me and Lynn.
Thanks, Woody. So I'll just go in. Madison, is it possible since we've got some people in person, some people digital, how would you like to do the presentation aspect of this?
If you have it pulled up, you can share your screen. We do have a fairly large computer screen that everybody can see, so it should be fine.
Okay,
Yeah, we can see that. Thank you.
great. All right, well, thank you, everybody. The planning commissioners, thank you very much for your time, taking the time to look through the package. I know it's a big package, but thanks for taking some time on this project too. The property in question is Lucero's gas station. And I've got a couple of pictures here that, I'm sure you're all familiar with the building. It's been vacant for quite a while and, disrepair for sure. We are really proposing to maintain the majority of the footprint. We're extending out, looking to do an addition out on kind of the south side of the building. The large roof structure that's kind of looks like a little bit of a 70s kind of storage truss look to it is coming off. And that area under there is what Woody and Lynn are proposing as a large art gallery space. Lynn is an artist and is planning on having a studio here, as well as the potential to have an artist in residence from time to time. As it's a commercial building, obviously it needs to meet accessibility, so we're working through that. In the existing building, there's a small basement in the back, and it is accessed in a stair in this area, which we're removing, just renewing the stair on the other side. This is the area to the south that's addition, and that's about 5 feet out. It's still within the building envelope. It doesn't cross over the setback or anything, but it's providing new access up to an existing yet remodeled accessory apartment. So this is right now, it's a 1-bedroom apartment in terrible shape, but this is our plan for it. Kind of get some of the living space and a small cantilever deck off the back for some of those views. These are the elevations. This is the elevation from Main Street looking toward the building. See kind of the existing gable form remains. This is that area of addition to the south. And then this is all new roof. We are kind of coming off with a long shed roof to the side and creating some exposure on the corner. Here's from the front, here's to the side. This would be a garage door that should be able to open, but really kind of gives a peekaboo in. We're talking about, the potential of art piece or sculpture in there to kind of grab people's eyes. They're driving by or walking by. The addition to the roof to the back actually steps up, creating some large windows that will allow, when you come into the front door, you'll be able to kind of see up through those windows up at the cliffs. It also creates a large wall space inside for the art presentation. And right now we're showing on the side here, this is actually a piece of Lynn's work, but it could be, it could change, it could rotate just to highlight different artists on the building. This is that south side addition. It's all the clear cedar area. And again, this is just a door from the outside to access that upper accessory dwelling unit. This, with the addition, we are aligning, we're kind of maintaining the ridge of the existing roof. Some various sections here, and then these are just some perspectives of the building and material samples. The wood siding is going to be a clear cedar, as I mentioned. The windows will be clad windows. We're proposing kind of a dark charcoal. It's actually called iron ore in this brand, but if it's not this brand, it'll be something similar. And then, so painted siding and metal roof. Again, not really too much work is being done around the perimeter as far as where some of the heavier grades occur to the rear. Staff has 3 recommendations, one of which is to address all of Intermountain Engineering's comments. We've looked over those. That's not a problem. We will be sure to put in that additional information for the permit set of documents. And that's kind of the overview. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Would you like to start tonight?
Yeah,
Since you're live?
okay. Hello, Woody, Lynn, and Greg. Thanks. The project looks great. I love the kind of the different colors, the roof lines, even the name, Station. If that stays that way, I like it. It's going to be an improvement. What's there. So I don't have much. I just think you guys did a great job.
Thanks, Chris.
Elliot?
I think it looks awesome. I think promoting or having an arts district in town and sort of being the potential leader in this is really cool. Having that vision, I think, is going to be really good for the town. I think, I've just read that supporting arts, and according to some economists, is, one of the pillars of community prosperity and economic growth. And I like to see things like this myself. I think also having an artist in residence is amazing. I think bringing artistic talent from other places to stay in Minturn, I think is so valuable. I think using the word station is cool. It's kind of a nod to history, a nod to sort of what once was. And I think that's great. I think it's a really cool project.
Thanks, Ellie.
Hi, Lynn and Woody. I think this is a much better option than where you had before. I think this is great. I love the other one. I was kind of waiting for the other one to happen after we saw it, and I thought that was awesome, but this is better. So I think it's pretty cool that you had the opportunity to upgrade from that original plan. I agree with what's been said prior as well. I love the name and the nod to the fact that it was the old gas station, as well as it kind of almost is a quasi play on words with, the train station being in town as well. I went to the art show that was at the Guild, in the Minturn Community Fund space on Friday, that had like the 8th graders and 9th graders showing their works last Friday night. And we kind of tailgated in the parking lot for an hour or so while some of my friends' kids showed their art. And I think having a space like this is long overdue in town. I wish it was 3 times the size.
So do we.
I'm sure you do too, but I'll take it. I just think it's a great use of the space and a reworking of the space. And I really love that this is kicking off what's hopefully becoming, a revitalization of that part of town, that commercial South Town district that used to be kind of vibrant. And I think that this is a catalyst to that. So congratulations. And I don't have anything other than that to say. I'm behind it and support it fully.
Jenna?
Thank you.
Jenna?
Couldn't unmute. Here we are. Yeah, this is excellent. I've been waiting for this to happen. And I'm really pleased. I mean, I love your art, Lynn. I've been doing to your house, and I appreciate what you guys have and what you do. And I just
Are you like far away from your microphone or something?
I'm not. I changed microphone. I'm having the microphones from Planning Commission are actually hard to hear. So guys a little bit better for Planning Commission commentary. So I tried my headphones, but obviously you can't hear me as well. So I'll take them off. CDOT didn't have a problem with what you guys were doing at all with the changes to the use on the property? They're gonna let you have both access points, I assume?
I'll have ask Woody and Lynn to speak about kind of the access points a little bit more if they'd like, but I actually went back and forth with CDOT about actually trying to use a little bit more of the right of way. But it was pretty much a hard no. So they have seen this as far as what we're proposing, and it's going to utilize the existing curb cut on this parcel. And then it utilizes an existing curb cut to the north via an easement. So.
Cool. Yeah, no, that's great. I mean, I was hoping that you talked to them and they were in support of keeping the kind of that loop in there, because I think that's going to be useful for dropping off supplies and large canvases and as people come in and anyone, if you're going to do like a catered event. So that's good. I'm pleased to hear that. And then I'm really excited to see a lot of curb appeal come back to this property, because it's pretty devoid of happy space right now. So
Devoid.
Yeah. So yay. And maybe, I know that you can't use the right of way per se, but maybe some seeds can filter in there or something like that to give it a little bit more beauty on the outside, besides the architecture, which I really do like. And I agree with all the comments so far that we have heard on what's being done, and love to have more of this. So, and I love the name as well. And I'm a big fan and support of the arts. So good luck with everything.
Thanks, John.
Tom?
Yeah, to echo what Jenna said, I appreciate the fact that you're no longer making that area devoid. And it's an exponential improvement of what's currently there. That said, Woody mentioned an art district, so it begs the question, the remainder of the lot down to the river, you've got that one single building and the single wide, excuse me. Any plan in the future to make a mini district, some small studios, something that's going to segue from that current plan of the station to actually enhance that spot to make a small district, or any other vision to do something with that piece?
The interest so far is to make the town of Minturn have its own arts district that would cover the whole town. And we've made a couple of pushes at it, but haven't been able to get the funding and stuff to get it going. But it would be town-wide. It's not just one little place. This though would give a real anchor for that, to get an arts district going, which gives us a lot of ability to raise funding and do some art in town, either sculptures along the sidewalks or sides of buildings, which there's a project right now they're talking about doing. So, but it wouldn't be an art district right there. It would be the whole town is what we're talking about. And this would be part of it. It's a place to, use the apartment potentially for visiting artists and or lecturers, and just to help promote the arts in Minturn.
Sure.
There are two buildings behind there. One little one, which is going to come down and be parking. Then there's the, whatever you called it.
We call
Trailer.
it, but
We
it's
call
really
it
a
a
trailer,
cabin.
but it's really a trailer with
But
additions.
we fixed that up. We put it doesn't look like it on the outside, but we put major effort into fixing it up. So everything is brand new inside. And our plan is, is to rent that. And actually, the person who's renting it is a jeweler who's coming out here to work with Jim Cotter. So there's some synergy there.
I'm sorry, did I say single wide? I'm sure you meant extensive mountain chalet. I got it. So,
Yes, exactly.
That's right.
all right, that's all I have. Thank you.
Yeah.
I agree
Thanks,
with
Tom.
everything everybody has said, but I have a couple technical things to ask. On page 21 of our packet, it says maximum impervious coverage unknown. However, on your application form, it says total square foot impervious surface 6781. Can somebody clarify that for me?
Madam Chair, I think we missed that in our staff report, perhaps. Just doing the math. So Greg, do you know what the percentage impervious is? I don't think it's changing much.
So it would be what's on the application then.
Correct.
So can we have that brought over to our packet so that it's on file in ours also, please? And then I know somebody said at the last meeting that this is something that doesn't need to be said, but I'm sure that if you have a trash can, you're gonna have a bear-proof one. And perhaps you can make that artistic too. Get a metal one that you can paint. And one more thing is, Scott, in the last meeting with Greg, was it your resident, Greg?
Yes.
We were talking about possibly eventually changing out the siding, which is something you're questioning here too. We put that in as a condition that staff can approve it if that be necessary. Can we see that that happens too, please?
Sure. Just include that in your motion.
Okay.
Shall be done.
Oh, okay. No, I can do it. Okay, and with that, is there anything else anybody has to say? Or we need to open it to the public? Is there anyone out there?
There is indeed somebody in the public. If you would like to speak, please raise your hand. It's at the bottom that's a hand button on the bottom of your screen. I'll allow you to talk. I see no raised hands, Madam Chair.
Okay, with that, we'll close public comment and we'll go for a motion. So who was at the last, okay.
Can you clarify the additional conditions before we make a motion?
Pardon?
Can you clarify what the additional conditions beyond what's in the packet are being added before we make a motion?
When you read the presentation, as they work the project, they may decide to change some siding. So what we did last time was make that
Yep.
something staff could approve without having come back before the commission.
Okay, so just that one item and the administrative non-permeable is a separate issue of clerical change, correct?
And then whatever if there are any other, yes. So that would just be an addition to it.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
So is the impervious in question or no?
No.
No? Okay. So then I'd like to make a motion to approve the plans for the Station Art Gallery and Studio on Lot 3, Lucero subdivision, as presented tonight with the following conditions. Number one, the applicant shall revise the site plans, sheet A1, 0.A0.1 to show all the proposed snow storage and areas and calculations in accordance with requirements of the municipal code. Number two, the applicant shall stake the property boundaries, specifically the front corners and the property line along Highway 24 right of way prior to construction to ensure that the limits of disturbance and the improvements do not encroach off the property and into the CDOT right of way. A land survey or similar instrument shall be provided to the planning director after the driveway improvements are completed and prior to any final certificate of occupancy inspection is scheduled for the project to ensure that improvements have been completed entirely on lot 3. Number 3, the applicant shall address Intermountain Engineering's concerns prior to or concurrent with the building permit application process. And then we are going to add number 4, which is if in the event that the applicant is going to change the proposed exterior siding materials, that will be handled at a staff approval level. And I would also add number 5, that there's going to be the calculations for the impervious surface will be included on the building permit. And I believe that's it.
Motion by Jeff. May I have a second, please?
Second.
Motion by Jeff, second by Chris. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it, everybody.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. We'll keep the staff up to date on moving forward. Thank you.
Congratulations, Lynn and Woody.
Yeah, I'm excited for you guys. Can't wait for the big opening party bash.
Yeah. There's a long way from that, but
We're
at least we're the next step. Thank
We're
you.
going to have a
That's right.
great
Oh,
Yeah,
it's going to be
You
fantastic.
know we're going to have a good opening.
Of course. Absolutely.
Thank you.
Okay, next. 455 Main Street, Old Town Commercial District. This is a request for the addition of a deck onto the wings. Name, Golden Aspen Leaf Incorporated. Backcountry Wings, patio and garage door. Scott?
Thank you, Madam Chair. You did a nice job in introducing that. I'm going to let Madison introduce this file. She worked with the applicant, went out and looked at the site, and did the review. So Madison, if you would be so kind.
Okay, so 455 Main, Backcountry Wings, the applicant is Sarah Biggs. Much like almost every other restaurant in town, they're looking to implement an outdoor patio space that they can have seating outside, extend their occupancy so that they can have people can sit out there and have drinks. They've gotten approval for from the liquor board for the liquor license to extend for that 15 by 15 square. So it does take up 2 parking spots. They have 8 parking spots on the lot. They are showing 51 seating spaces inside. However, in Ms. Biggs' letter of intent, she did call out 59 seating spaces, so they're required to provide 10 spots. I apologize. 10 spots. They've got 8 on the site, and there is a section of code that provides that within the Old Town Commercial Zone District, any business can have either 50% or up to 6 spaces on taken up by Highway 24 parking. So they only need 2 additional spaces on site or on street parking to make up what they're needing to kind of, since they're taking away the 2 spaces to do the patio. So Ms. Biggs was very proactive and meeting with me. She started this conversation probably about a month ago. Just wanted to make sure that this was all okay before she started cordoning off spaces. And this will be much like the Bagustos, where it's technically a temporary structure that they can take down in the winter. But they'll always have that ability to put it in when they would like.
Okay. Is there any presentations, anybody from them presenting?
Ms. Biggs is here.
Hey, everyone.
Good evening, Sarah. Thank you for coming.
Thank you for having me.
Will you state your name and address, please?
My name is Sarah Biggs. I am the owner with my husband of the Gourmet Cowboy and Backcountry Wings located at 455 Main Street.
And is there anything you would like to say to the commission before we start?
We just are really hopeful to get this project underway and before summer's over and be able to add some space to our restaurant and allow some outdoor seating for our guests as they come in and to our lovely little town and, you know, kind of get with the times as all the other restaurants have little patios. We'd like to be part of that too. So
Elliot, would you like to start? Please.
Sure. You know, I think it's great. I think adding to Mintern's, I've said this on a few other projects, adding to the social landscape and the curb appeal to the town, I think is a very good thing. As well as having the flexibility to expand and retract, I think is a great idea to make use of the space when you can, and also remove it to you know, make way for snow removal and things like that. I think that's really smart. So I'm all for it.
thank you.
Jeff?
Hi, Sarah.
Hi.
Yeah, I think it's a great idea. One question I had was, are you gonna go back to using those parking spaces in the winter time?
Yes, the
Yeah.
patio will be removable and the fencing will come down so that they can plow, and those parking spots are usable because I know they do pile snow in front of our building. So some of our on-street parking is taken up by that. So.
Okay, yeah, I think it's a great idea, and I think it'll be super cool, and I'm all for it.
Chris?
Hi, Sarah.
Hi.
Wonderful idea. Love the idea of getting people outside because it'll just bring more people, like any restaurant. Oh, look at that, looks fun. So bring more money to the town yourself. Yeah, I love it. So
Thank you.
Let's jump to the screen. Hey, Jana.
Hi, Sarah.
Hi.
Glad to see you guys are going to use some outside space. I know you're pretty tight.
Yes.
I am hoping that there'll be also some nice planters and things that you'll be putting in there just to liven up the space, because it is a little with the car wash next door and a lot of asphalt. It'd be nice to see some greenery in the window boxes and such. So that should be a nice addition. On the inside, what do you guys, is it just empty wall space there now?
So there's a window there now. There's a window here. I'm going to share my screen. So it would be, this window would go away and the door would kind of sit where that window is.
Okay, got it. So it's another shuttered window.
Exactly. So it's going to be the doors going in there. And basically just going to take over that space. It's going to be big open panes so you can see in and out, add some light to the restaurant and kind of not box it in.
Yeah, I think that's going to be good overall, just having extra light inside because it is pretty dark in there.
Yes.
So that'll be a nice change for you guys in there. I don't really have anything else. You guys have satisfied your show and your parking. I did have a question though. You guys have a lot of catering vehicles that usually are in those parking spaces. Are you going to try to move those somewhere else so that they're not taking up customer parking? Is that the goal?
Some of them will be moved and rotated throughout spaces so we can create more parking spaces within the lot.
Okay.
We do have some spots behind the car wash that are part of our property, so
Oh, okay.
probably one will move over there to allow a little bit more space.
I
next
think
to the
that would,
building.
I think that's in your best interest, just to keep your vehicles out of the way when you can, just to allow for more customers to park there, especially when I anticipate it's going to be pretty busy.
Exactly.
Busy time in Minturn this summer, so that'll be really good. Well, I think it's great.
Thank you.
Yeah, good luck with everything.
Thank you.
Tom?
Obviously echo what everybody else says. Sarah, I'm Tom. Good to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
I would also add, obviously, it's incumbent upon us as a community representatives to definitely assist businesses in light of the last year and a half we just went through, particularly the restaurant industry. So doing everything we can to give them maximum flexibility to transition their business, because COVID's heading out, but who knows what's around the corner. So the sooner she can retrofit that and move on, be great. So I'm on board.
Thank you.
Jeff, you had something else?
Yeah, Sarah, I just wanted to add one more thing. I don't know how much snow you get on that roof exposure there, but adding that glass door, I just want you to be conscious of, I don't know if you'll have to heat tape above that, you know, on that, that's a lot of roof above there. I would think you get a lot of icicles and a lot of ice damming potentially double it. So just to maintain the integrity of that new door and the engineering that's going to probably have to go into a header that goes across there. I don't know if you crossed that bridge yet. Just want you to be aware of the practical.
So it's a post and beam building. And I believe they are, they are putting in a header.
Yeah, of course.
They'll put a header in for the door.
And two beams on the doorways.
Yep, so there'll be a header and two beams to hold the door up. And we'll check to make sure that the heat tape is working across that roof. It does have sun exposure for most of the day, so we don't get too much of a buildup. But we're gonna deal with ice stuff anyways this coming winter, so.
Great. Cool.
Okay. Anybody else have anything else they'd like to jump in? With that, let's open to public comment. Madison, is there anything out there, please?
We do have a couple of people in the audience. If you'd like to speak, please raise your hand. It's button at the bottom of your screen will allow you to talk. No public comment.
With that, no public comment. We will close public comment. And I'm sorry, I did not say previously that, Elliot, you are not able to vote on this one or the other due to the fact that we have Jenny here still, but can we clarify that for the next?
But I think your inclination, no, I think your inclination is good though. If we have a quorum, and Jenna's recused, then I don't know.
Okay, so this evening we'll just be here.
I'm just happy to be here.
We're just happy to be here with us. We're happy to have you. Okay, sorry, there was a little clarification I needed. So with that, may I have a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve the patio garage door project at 455 Main Street for Gourmet Cowboy and Backcountry Wings as it says in the packet.
May I have a second, please?
Second.
Motion by Chris, second by Jenna. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
Have at it.
Thank you so much.
Woo, thanks, guys.
Good luck, you guys.
Thank you.
And I am hereby now recusing myself from tonight's planning commission meeting.
I am hereby going to call for 5-minute recess before we start the next session. If that's okay with everybody.
Affirmative.
I'll be sitting for a while.
I recorded a whole CD in that building, in the dining room.
probably a full month of recording.
Why?
Because the
Good
guy that
acoustics.
owned it, yeah, it was good acoustics, we could spread out. We brought an engineer up from Boulder and he brought all his gear and set up shop. This second of Hercules album.
So that was,
That's the best one.
goes then, or was it already, or was it just sitting empty?
It was in between Bocas.
Okay.
It was after Bocas. It was empty, it was just private events every now and then. But it was totally big, like the whole dining room had no furniture in it. But it's, you know, it sounded like it. And you could spread out, you like the guitar player could be in the back. Drummer could be in there. It was cool. Back in the day.
Still have a little heart sticker stuck to somewhere now.
Yeah. That's,
Are you guys still together as a band? Like, are all the members still up here? And
no, just the bass, well, 3 of us, 4 of us actually. We went through a couple drummers, one's still here, one's back here. A couple of the guys one of the guys went to rehab, one of the guys, those 2 of those guys don't talk to each other. Yeah, that's
what happens.
Some of us have left kids. We tried. I tried to stay on the road with that band after Xander was born for 2 years. Terry was like, kill me.
You need to be old.
She's like, you
change the
you
name.
go on any more tours.
Is that Xander's Jeep Cherokee?
Xander's Jeep Cherokee.
It drives fast.
No, he drives fast.
Clarification.
It made me remember about my teenage years. I was like, man, he can go fast in that Walmart parking lot.
You can take a video and send it to mom or dad. I miss being at home and snacking. Have you ever noticed, like, I look at myself on the TV, it's like, wow, I'm just eating all the time.
Yes, we all noticed.
I'm hungry now.
You trained your body.
I
It's
know.
6:30 on a Wednesday and you're hungry.
I'm not always.
I'm always hungry too.
This is a little bit of a hard entry.
I told Jess, I wonder if they'll have some sandwiches or something. She goes, you better eat before. No, they'll have some food.
I'm constantly reminding them, for no other reason than your own safety. Everyone in town knows who you are. And they know who you are.
Well, now at
Slow
least I
down.
know the vehicle that I
Slow
can't
down.
avoid. So all of you, so that you know, I was able to get some helpful feedback from Jenna, and she said the sound comes in best when you all face directly to your mics and to speak slowly.
Okay.
That way it doesn't sound really.
So if I move the mic here, I can still, as long as the mic isn't.
Yes, ma'am.
Is it just on all the time or do I have to like
Yes.
press? Okay.
The blue light is on all the time unless you don't want it to be on. Usually people turn it off until they're.
Blue light on?
Yeah, have you
Blue
turned it
light's
on? I was trying to figure out how to turn it
I
on.
turn it off.
And in.
Yeah, push down and in.
Oh, down and in.
Down.
Ah, okay, I got you.
Or pick it up and flip it over, there's a switch.
If the blue light
Oh,
is off,
okay.
it's off.
Down and up.
Oh,
you go.
there we go. Okay.
Okay, next on the, we're calling the meeting back to order. Next item on the agenda is the update to the Belden Place staff report for May 26th, Planning Commission. Scott?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. Can everyone hear me okay? Jenna, can you hear me out there? Tom?
I can, you get it, there's a really bad echo. That's what's happening here. So just, everyone be quiet. It's all good.
Okay.
Is it wrong that I have better connectivity in Iraq than you do down the road in Mentor? I'm curious.
You sound great, Tom.
Yeah, Tom sounds great.
Perfect.
I'll try to speak clearly and slowly. Madam Chair, Planning Commission, we did start the review of this file at the May 26th regular meeting. We had a very long meeting with a lot of good discussion and some presentations. The outcome of that meeting was that the Planning Commission, and please correct me if I'm wrong, but I think the takeaways from that first meeting were that there's a desire to keep talking about the housing plan that's being proposed with this PUD, the open space requirements, perhaps some additional conversations regarding the trade-offs between the proposed density, building height, and then the open space requirements, so part of that. And then also the building height calculation method. And before I go any further, just for anybody on the audience, this is a new PUD, planned unit development that's being proposed in the Southtown character area. And this is a preliminary plan for PUD. It's the second stage in the review process. The first being the concept plan review. The preliminary plan review is second, and the next stage of the applicant is to gain approval from the Planning Commission and the Town Council. So the preliminary plan would be a final plan and final plat. Plat would be the subdivision instrument that subdivides the property and allows for development. So that's where we are. We're in the preliminary plan stage. This is meeting number 2 with the Planning Commission. The other thing that the Planning Commission made mention of last time was just, if the staff is recommending approval, there's a very lengthy staff report included in the packet. At the end of that staff report that was presented on May 26th, there was not many, but some conditions, and those conditions were meant to be kind of catch-alls. There are outstanding issues that need to be addressed between any preliminary plan approval and a final plan application. Staff feels that most of those, if not all of them, are fairly technical in nature. None of them, if they are successfully resolved, would change the character or the layout or the design of the project. But we were asked to provide some clarity on what all of those issues are. So in the update, not only has the applicant provided a pretty helpful chart describing all of the variations from standards that they are requesting with this planned unit development, staff has also broken down by category what the outstanding issues were, and then correlating that with a fairly detailed and lengthy list of conditions 1 through 10. Within each of those conditions 1 through 10, there are kind of sub points. Again, most of those are pretty technical in nature. A lot of them have to do with changes that need to happen on the preliminary plat as it evolves into a final plat document and gets submitted to the town. So we did our best to be as transparent as possible with the Planning Commission and the public as to what the nature of all those outstanding issues or comments are, and boil them down into conditions that you could attach to any approval for this file. So with that, I don't know if you have any questions of me right now, or if we'd like to turn this over to Jenna Skinner and Allison Perry, the applicant's representative. I'm happy to take the questions that you have.
Anybody have any questions of Scott? No. Okay.
The last thing I would mention is that we should take public comment tonight. If there's anybody wanting to comment on this, we did not take public comment at the first meeting. And lastly, Tori Franks from the Eagle County Housing and Development Authority is with us tonight to talk to you about housing in general and our housing plan and how best to administer that.
So Jenna Allison, will you please state your name and address?
Sure. My name is Jenna Skinner. I'm a professional land planner here in Minturn, and my address is 922 Main Street.
And I'm Allison Perry with Vail Land Company, and I live in Eagle, Colorado.
And with that, Jenna, please start.
All right. Well, I know you guys were so riveted last time when we did our presentation that I am going to be very brief and just skip to the points that Scott was talking about, which is a little bit more explanation on housing and touch on a couple other things just for clarification. So with that, indeed, we are doing the three files all in one at this point in time: preliminary plan, zone change, and preliminary plat. And I'm just going to just cut through the chase and get to the point of not contention, so forth, but just clarification and why we're proposing a new building height. As you recall, in our last hearing, we did a nice pedestrian walkthrough, if you will, of slides that took us around the neighborhood and things like that. And one of the concerns from staff in particular was like, why are we trying to change building height? And with our project, it's the first of its kind really to have such a mix, a cavalcade of single family duplex, triplex, stacked flats, and also a fiveplex, which Minturn hasn't seen in quite a while. And what we want to do is improve the architecture and construction of these like multi-family buildings with modern architectural creativity, and make it a better project versus something like you see on the screen here. We feel that there's a lot of potential when you have a linear, which is just a line going across that said, here's your height limit, that could lend people down the road. For instance, we have some rooftop decks, which are lower than the highest roof height. We don't want people to come back in and fill those in. We want to preserve that space as personal open space. We want our buildings to remain intact. And as such, what happens is when you have just a line that goes straight across and here's your height limit, you end up with buildings that look like this, kind of like a little bit more like the Enclave. No offense to the Enclave, but it's just very, very straight across. It doesn't really articulate the roof in various ways, and it really doesn't. The code doesn't respond well to this hybrid form of construction that we're proposing. So what we've done is we've split up, we have 3 examples of our different construction buildings, the single family, the fiveplex, and then the stacked flats, to kind of show you what we could do if you guys are, and the town is insistent upon just using standard code and having that linear line that goes across and here's your height. We could do that, and with that, we still would have to accept our staircases, which is missing from the code where they allow for elevators and spheres and towers, but staircases just weren't anticipated when code was written, I'm assuming, and rightfully so, because there's not a lot of rooftop decks up here yet. But as you've seen in the last couple of hearings, people are starting to do that, just to pull themselves off the street level and more creative ways to use their homes and businesses. And so we're trying to control bulk effectively by introducing more of an average system than the straight across. And with that, I will move on to our first plan. So this is one of our single families, and this is basically an example of what we have in our PUD guide about how to calculate. In this case, though, we just really took a closer look at it. We double checked everything. We went through all the numbers again. And as you can see, we have a max height of 32. We have a midpoint between the eave and the ridge of 28.6. And then everything kind of splits up, and we're trying to also capture an acceptable ceiling height on the inside to give people. I think these are market homes. These are very valuable to them. These are not as affordable as they were 5 years ago, but just because our real estate market's off the roof. So we want to make sure that people, really love where they're living. And so with that, we've provided a calculation, which is also in our PUD guide as an example to what it shows. And because this in this case, our staircase is a little lower, we're indifferent of the single family home. Makes a lot of sense. There's only one building. We could just have a standard height that works great. An average weighted roof, because we have points that go up and down, our height would end up being 26 feet 11, but you need all the components of how it's constructed to have that roof height stay the same. Where it becomes really important is in the multifamily fiveplex. We have interior units with and we have the lots that go back, but you're sharing a wall with your neighbor. We have the end units are a little less attached, so they're not as much of a concern. But if you can see on the screen, if we have, this is a roof, and so with this roof being as it is, that is 34.8. Here next to it, you can see these little people standing here. These are the rooftop decks. If we left a standard linear height going all the way across, someone could come in and fill this space in, someone could fill this space in, and all of a sudden you have a building that does not have an articulated roof line anymore. And it really it loses a lot of the architectural flavor and creativity that we're trying to create. This is that kind of example. And because it is up and down, kind of like the liquor store just on Main Street, they have the two smaller ones and then they have a bigger one in the middle. That's the same idea. When you do the weighted or the average roof height, you get down to 32.9 or 33 feet. And that makes more sense because we're not trying to just build a huge building all the way across. We're really trying to be conservative wherever we can to make sure that everyone has a garage. Your living space is really on the second and third floor. And that's what's really driving why we're doing this whole exercise in the first place.
And I'll just jump in for a second, Jenna. So this is something that that I see in a lot of different places that I had, a lot of experience with, but municipalities use this and communities use this to encourage builders to do more creative houses and not to just build a block and not to keep coming back to DRB with blocks. So it allows people to have towers, allows them to have little offices, allows different things. In this case, we're building the building, so we're showing you exactly what we're planning to build. But as a rule, a weighted roof average is not an unusual thing, and it actually encourages more interesting architecture.
Absolutely. And, and times have changed. You've started to see the new houses that are coming in. You've seen Michael Pukish and his plans coming through. You just saw Mr. Sparhawks with the station, and you can see all those roof lines are going, this way and that way. It's becoming the norm of architecture to get away from just the strict peak roof and building as it was. That's a trend. I mean, you can obviously see architecture through the years. This is our flats, our triplex or our stacked flats. And again, we have covered decks. We have them there. We have 3 different levels. It's going to be on a podium. It's not one giant building, and it's harder to see in our presentation before just because they're still images and they're not 3-dimensional, but effectively there are 4 different buildings, and the elevator shaft is in the middle. That's what that rectangle is just over yonder. But with this, our max height of this structure, if we did midline, would be 33.7, so that would be a 34-foot height. That's doable if that's acceptable. It's really the multi 5-plex that and the little triplexes that are driving this. If there was a way to do, heights for specific buildings, we could do it that way. But in general, we feel that we are the ones that are going to have to prove our roof height. We are going to, for every single building permit that we come in, we are going to present something like this. We want this project to have a legacy and longevity and preserve everything that's happening. So that's kind of the main reasons why we're doing it this way. We don't want to look back and see something, all of a sudden there's a wall there. And I don't think you guys would be interested in doing that either. And so that's kind of what we're heading for with the heights. And for that, we'll stop here for a minute before we move on to the next point of topic, unless you guys want us to keep going.
I'd like comments first.
Sure.
Jeff.
Well, thank you, Allison and Jenna, for the explanations, because I brought it up last time, and I thought that it was important that we have the conversation about the heights and why. I understand the rationale behind it. I certainly understand the rationale behind having garages versus no garages and what that does to the parking, what that does to the value for the owner. I think it's a much nicer product to have the garage versus no garage, and just to maintain the height restriction and to parking somewhere else. I also understand the difference because we have had a few projects, especially in the 100 block that we've been looking at over the past couple of years that had to do with, heights on Main Street, et cetera. And for the most part, these buildings, your multifamily buildings, your stacked flats, they are at the rear and they're the furthest away from Highway 24. So the view for the passerby on the driving corridor of Highway 24, there's it's forest space behind us. So I think the overall pedestrian impact as you look at this is very, very different. And I don't really think you can compare this to the Enclave because the Enclave sits right on the road. And it's right in between you and your view of as you drive by or as you walk by or ride your bike by, it's very different. It has a very different feel to the pedestrian passerby to see that building and its height as it relates to the view corridor of the river or Lion's Head or the cliffs, et cetera. When you walk by or drive by this project in particular, which I've been driving by this property for 20 plus years to get to my house, it's just a different perspective with the hills rising behind it. So I take all of that into consideration when it comes to the reasons why and the variance of is this appropriate or not. And I think one of the criteria for a PUD for us as a planning board as we look at variances and variations like this, that's, in my opinion, that's kind of part of the reason why we look at developments as a PUD is because they need to have something different. They need to be looked at through different eyes than just the standard zoning, and that's why they're a PUD. So as far as these buildings and the rationale, I completely understand it, and I don't have a problem with it, honestly. I think that they're going to be taller than anything else around there. But by the same token, the closest neighborhood to you, to the north or the northwest, is that small subdivision, and it's still, I think, far enough away that I don't really think that this property almost just kind of sits on its own, and it doesn't have a lot of neighbors. So I don't really have a problem with the height as it's been presented.
Do you have a preference over, us doing the variation to have the unique height to control the architectural remains intact, or would you prefer the standard height? I'm sure that Scott's really wondering that.
No, I don't particularly feel that you should have to adhere to that because I think that there are merits to why it's not. And I think that if the general public and the neighbors in particular don't have a huge problem with it, I don't have a problem with it.
Thank you.
I'm going to come in the middle for a change. I don't have a problem with the building at the back of the property with your description of it and the height. I am not comfortable with it on the previous one you showed, which was the townhouses, I believe. I would like to see that stay as close as possible to the current as we can in height, or something like that, or if you could bring it down a foot somehow and do your variation. But I hate to see it getting so close to 35 feet on some of those buildings. Like I said, the one in the back, I thoroughly agree with Jeff. But on the others, I see this as a stepping stone to a lot of other projects that are coming forward, and I just hate to see us keep getting asked for more and more height in this town. And I know for a fact from years of being here, that is one of the issues that a lot of people always talk about is why did that get in? Why is that height there and things like that. And I have it in my story, my book that I have that references what people like and don't like. And I've given that to council. I've given it to the staff here, just so you can read through it. And Jen, if you need a copy, I'm happy to give it to you also if you haven't gotten it. So that would be my only concern is how can we allow the taller one in the back or the taller ones towards the back of the property and keep the front just a little bit shorter? Thank you.
Absolutely. And just be aware that, you know, when I said that first example where it's only a difference of, you know, it's 28.6, those three, all the houses that, to Jeff's point, are in between the road and that fiveplex are all of that height. Just for clarification, this is on the center that the park is attached to, just for clarification.
Who else is out there? Elliot.
Yeah. So, you know, I really actually, you know, I guess the PUD allows there to be kind of different perspectives here, which I think is great. And, you know, when the linear limitations sort of puts the limit on the freedom of design. And what I actually really like you guys doing is sort of the creativity, you have the creativity to work outside of the box while also being in a box. And I commend you for, I think that's great. And I keep on thinking about sort of skylines and roof lines. And for some reason it came back to thinking about, I lived in San Francisco for a while, and there was the Painted Ladies, which was this sort of like famous row of uniform houses. And they're all the same height, but they all kind of go up along a hill. But it's sort of this juxtaposition of like the modern San Francisco background, skyline in the background with sort of the more Victorian in the foreground. But it all seems to work. And I try to think about, you know, varying roof heights, but the average is there. You know, I mean, mountain ridge lines are in varying heights. So, you know, I'm trying to just get a visual on like what this would look like against the varying ridge lines and the mountains and the hills behind. So I'm just sort of trying to see how this would sort of lay in the existing landscape. And I kind of like where your head's at with just working kind of within the box, but outside of the box. I think it's really cool where you're going with this. And I'm just trying to get a visual myself on like what this would look like in the existing landscape. I'm not sure how much this helps, but I actually kind of like where you're going with this. We going somewhere?
Well, I'm trying to go somewhere.
Yeah, I just asked, we have the streetscapes that show it with the existing topography, the real topography that's there. So I just thought we could start at the beginning and walk through it again if you wanted to see that.
Right. Yeah, thank you. It's helpful. I used to have a big monitor in my room, but now that we're here, I only have like one little one, so I could.
I think that even just
back here. So if you just streetscape and walk through that, this is coming down 24, Christensen's on the right.
Yeah, and this is the building we're talking about.
Those are the row houses. That's the 5-row house.
Right. And I think that looks great. Like it's very different. It's not sort of here's our limitation and let's go all the way across the board at that height. You know, I like the idea of a varying roof line. So, you know, I'm very interested to kind of see where this all pans out. Because I'm liking what I see and I like what you guys are doing and the constraints that you have. So I'm kind of leave it at that.
Okay, thanks, Elliot. Yeah, so just all these diagrams that we have invested in, they are to scale and they are reflective of the actual topography. Sure, the trees are all flat, but those are, so this would be 100% backdropped as you look, if you looked on it straight in and from most angles, except from dead side.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, this is the actual topo put into the program. And the houses are actually, CAD and scale.
Yep.
Cool.
So, thanks, Elliot.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jenna. Thanks, Allison. On that picture we're looking at right there, would you say we're looking southwest?
We are actually
Yes.
looking south. We
Yeah.
are coming, southeast,
Yeah, you're right, southeast.
southeast.
From town towards Leadville.
Here's up here, Chris, in the corner here. So here's the Christensen's house that exists. And we're kind of looking this way.
Am I assuming right as you're on 24 looking toward the back of the project, does it slowly increase in height from kind of the first to the middle to the back?
Yes.
Except
little
it actually drops in the park. The ones in the park are only 2 stories, so they're lower. So if you go forward, I think 3 or 4 frames, Jenna, I think that walks you down. Keep going. So actually, yeah, back up one. Yeah, so that one's actually good. So this is when you come around to the back of that 5-plex, and then there's the 2 little short ones that are by the park.
Perfect. Everyone here, Elliot, Jeff and Lynn, I love hearing the conversation, and like Jeff said, kind of understand what you're doing. I think the project looks great. I love the idea of getting some more locals in there, and I see what you're trying to do. I don't have a problem with it, so.
Tom, are you still out there, please?
I never left, Lynn. I'm with you.
You're not coming back on a plane right now to join us?
16 July. I will be right there with you. I'll swing by your shop.
Thank you.
Sure. So on that note, I realize the history of the 28-foot height code is probably filled with a lot of drama and angst, and somebody can educate me on it later. And I recognize Lynn's concerns, and obviously what Jeff said as well. If we use probably the most recent submission, which was the concept for 172 Main, as we look at it as a council, obviously, if we're going to look at a variance, you're running through the list of obstructions, encroachment via height, via mass, matter of interference to snow, et cetera. Obviously, in this case, all your neighbors are the same, and you're not really obstructing some pre-existing development, property, view, et cetera. On top of the fact that in the case of the triplex, you are pursuing fully underground or partially subterranean parking, and then obviously with the 5-plex, essentially 3-story homes with a modulating roof line. Got all that, and then just for a shout out to Madison, thank you for giving me some of this information plus some other stuff I had for everybody's. For illustration, as Lynn noted earlier in her story in regards to what people like and don't like, and the precedent's been set, I won't use the enclave. I realize the height increase over what was originally designed was predicated on a hardship based on builder issues and follow-on problems with that. But that said, everybody needs to take into account Hotel Minturn, 35 feet, Molly G building, 39.5 at its peak. The Minturn townhomes, 4 stories, well of 35. 421 Main, that 5-plex, 6-plex, I don't remember how many live work are there. Those are 31 feet. And those are all right there, not to mention the homes behind Hotel Minturn and Molly G are well above 28. So obviously it's not without precedent. Where it fits, I realize the concern in regards to, allowing the proverbial camel nose under the tent, as we say in our Middle Eastern world over here. But the fact remains, all the benefits derived from this, I appreciate Jenna's comment as far as the architectural piece. People want to like where they live. But that said, the more practical side of it is parking in the mountains with either subterranean or garage parking, and homes that are to a scale somebody could live in beyond one person in a studio. So I just throw all that out there as we mull this over, that the hard and fast 28 feet, I mean, we have to be realistic as to where it makes sense and where there's a point in having a variance. And I'm not opposed to the variance for this particular project. That's all I got.
Thank you, Tom. Okay, so I think we got everybody, if I'm not mistaken.
Excuse me, Madam Chair. I was hoping to, this is Richard, just make a clarification for the record. I'll turn my camera on real quick. Jenna, you stated, I believe, that the 5-plex next to the park and kind of the interior area, that would be 28 feet?
No, what I said was the houses that intersect or separate the 5-plex from Highway 24 are 28.6. So they'd be 29 feet if you want to round up to a round number. So when you're driving by, you actually see something that is really close to 6 inches taller than the normal standard.
Okay. And so.
And the weighted average is actually, under the standard.
Understand.
Right. But just while we're on height, it's one of the issues I have been unable to determine with the PUD guide is in the permitted uses map and tables is actually which lots are assigned which heights between the triplex and the multifamily labeling. So I don't know if you were if you were prepared to talk about that later, or if that's something you want to.
We can talk about it right now. And quite point in fact, the definitions of what a triplex and multifamily is. A triplex is 3 or less, or 3. Sorry, duplex is 2. The multifamily by definition is more than 3, which picks up the enclave of the 4 buildings that are attached together by an elevator. And in this case,
and the 5
and the 5-plex. I did see that, and what I'll be doing anyway is, because of the conditions that are on here, updating that and providing that to the town council. And I'm just going to clarify it to your comment so that it's ultimately extremely spelled out and there's no conflict with that. The variations, what I did was I just separated the structures, and it's a little bit cleaner even in that variations document that I just submitted last week, where it specifically says we're calling it a multifamily 5-plex, and then the multifamily on lot 7, and then everything else is a duplex, single family, or triplex. So that's much cleaner. So thank you for that clarification. That will be resubmitted for town council, and it'll be much clearer even in that document as well.
All right. Thank you so much, Jenna.
Absolutely.
Madam Chair, can I jump in real quick? So I just wanted to clarify staff's position. As you know, we are recommending approval with conditions. Staff has absolutely no problem with the requested variance for height. Jenna mentioned a couple of things that I really want to clarify why we're taking issue with the calculation method. It has nothing to do with the proposed heights. My review and comments on this, and I think Richard had similar comments when he went through the PUD guide, was it's not necessary. And the reason why I don't think it's necessary is because A, it's a PUD, and they're asking for a height variation for 35 feet. I understand the intent to ensure that there's a variation in roof forms, and I agree with that. There should be. What they've shown us is that. And part of my point was that they're the master developer. They've already shown us the architecture, and they've shown us the product that's going to get built. There's a pretty much 100% likelihood that it's going to get built as it's being shown. There may be some variations within the height on any individual building, but the whole point of using a weighted average, as Jenna mentioned, is to control bulk and mass and roof forms, and really not forced, in some cases forced, it's a prescriptive design standard, but really encourage architects to introduce building forms and roof forms that step a building down a site or that break it up. And in this case, I don't see that that's what's being achieved. I see roof points being taken for a stairwell, which is a really minor element, a minor roof over the entry. Those are really small elements. The whole purpose of a weighted average is to have a minimum percentage in bulk and mass of these forms that go around the building, and not just a dormer. You're not taking a point to a dormer and counting it. So I'm not saying it's disingenuous. I just don't think it's needed. If the maximum height on single family needs to be 29 feet or 30 feet, just tell us that. If the maximum height on the multifamily needs to be 36 or 35, tell us that. It's a PUD. And if there are variations or minor elements that need to project, if the code as it's written doesn't account for stairwells, the PUD can. The PUD can be written any way it wants. They need it to be to allow for minor appurtenances or architectural features that encroach above that to a certain point. All we were trying to do was point out that as a staff, as we take in building permits, Jenna's right. They're gonna do most of the work for us. They're gonna show on their building permit set, here's how we did all of our calculations. And if they want to go to that trouble to do the weighted average and show us all the different points, that's great, but we still have to check it. So, it's not a huge lift from the staff perspective. I think ours was more practical, that it may not actually be needed. We're not arguing the height. We're in favor of the variance for that. We're just trying to make this as, not as easy as possible, but as practical as possible. So.
And is that also to not set some kind of pave the way precedent for future weighted averages?
If they wanted to do a weighted average with buildings that actually have roof elements that should count in the weighted average, I'd be all for it.
Right.
I don't think that's what is being proposed. These are pre-designed architectural boxes that stack, and then these appurtenances for stairwells and things like that that don't add to the bringing down. When you look at an elevation, the stacking and the variation in roof heights, that is what we're looking for. As long as that's achieved, fine. I don't think you have to account for stairwells and things like that to get a weighted average, is what I'm saying. So.
Yeah, and then Scott, and we've talked about this lots of times, like, we're not like, oh my gosh, if we don't have this weighted average, the project is dead. We just wanted to be clear that what we're trying to do is to really focus on the architecture and make sure that we create these spaces that live on, because what happens 10 years down the road, we're all gone. And then someone comes in and tries to change something, and we're losing that. Sometimes you lose that history. So if your guys aren't concerned with that, the heights we presented, we have those slides. We know what our highest point would be that would require that, that height limitation. We know what they are. And so, yeah. And Allison, do you want to comment on?
Yeah, we would like your permission to build these buildings. We were just trying to help you set. We were just trying to help you set as easy a number as possible. So if the, if you'd rather use a bigger number, that's fine. And then anyway, I just didn't want to set a bad example and say, oh, hey, we need 36 feet when really most of the buildings at 30. And then we've got a stair tower to get to the roof deck. I just didn't want to set a bad example that somebody could follow and say, hey, they got 36 feet. But, and when you do and I've done weighted averages more often than I've done standard. So it just was natural to me. But we would like to build these buildings. I can tell you what the ridge points are for each section of it, and you can bless them if you would so.
Yeah. So what would happen?
We can stay with the weighted average, and the numbers are pretty close to what's standard anyway.
Right. So if you guys prefer to have the standard height, that is totally fine. What that means is that I would have to, in the PUD and on the variation request, have an exception for the roof stair height, much like the elevators are already in the code. And I think it's just because the code didn't anticipate someone having a staircase on the outside. And I can remove that height definition from the PUD guide, which I'm already changing anyway for town council, and turn it into a standard height. And Richard's already clarified, and I've clarified his comment in that the heights will be very specific pertaining to the buildings, and there'll be no question about that. And we can just call this, you know, satisfied, so to speak, as far as the work that we need to do to present to town council and go from there.
I don't have a preference. I said all of it, but at the end of the day, if the planning commission and council are more comfortable with the weighted average and the applicant is more comfortable with that, I think the result is going to be the same.
Yeah, again, yeah, we're just trying, like I said, we're just going by what we're doing. You know, I've managed, you know, countless PUDs, which all have different height calculations, whether it's here or in the Front Range. And I'm just used to it as a planner to go, okay, how do you do your height? All right. And just do it. I don't really think much of it. It's just a mechanism to accomplish what the initial design is. So again, I'm indifferent. This is, and Scott understands that as well. He's managed several PUDs with several different ways to calculate height. And he used to be on the DRB for Beaver Creek, so he's really knowing about that. So anyway, that's kind of the answer for that. We can go either way. We're totally cool. And we do really wish that these just get built.
Out of 42 buildings, but that includes Christensen's, doesn't it?
Yes.
So what is left, 40 and a half?
There'd be two different buildings with higher, and then everything else is at 29 or less.
That's where I was going. How many buildings of the 40 will be 35 feet per se? Even if it's 33.9. It's the ones in the back.
The ones in the back, we could do 34. And it's just this one middle section of the 5-plex with the flat roof that is actually 35. Let me go back to that page for you, Lynn. I'll show you.
Well, and I've got it.
We could go to the front. Go and go to the front elevation, Jen.
Just
two back, I think.
Like that guy?
Or yeah, there you go.
It's just this guy. This is 35 feet. At this point, it is like it was 33.7. So 34.
And where is that located in the project again?
It's on the interior. It's in the interior.
On the interior park.
It's from all directions when you're approaching the project. It is flanked by lower buildings. You'll just see a brief little glimpse of the taller roof height. It's an interior building. Let's go that route.
So the ones on the highway, is that 18, 19, and 20 will be at the 29-foot range?
Correct.
Yes.
Okay.
And so do most of the ones on either side.
Or all of those on the other sides too.
So all of these are 29. If you can see my mouse up in the upper left-hand corner, those are all 29 or lower.
Okay. It's tall. What about this one?
The one
And
that's
then the two in the park are short.
very back by the hammerhead.
Down by this guy?
That's the same as the stacked triplexes. They're all the
Yeah.
same. There's the same building actually.
Yeah. That's all lot 7. Those are ADA ready units.
Yeah, lot 5 is just a single family, right?
It says triplex.
No, the triplex is units 20.
12, 13, and 14.
Yeah, this is the triplex. We only have one. It's right here.
Okay, then I'm sorry, but if you go back where it says ramp, there's your large stackable building.
That's a duplex. 8 and 9, and they are below. They're 20 and 9 or below.
Yeah.
There's 8 and 9. There's your stackable. What's that?
Can you go to the site plan?
Sure can.
We'll go to that very last page, Jenna, if you don't mind.
You got it.
Might be the easiest.
Well, let's just drive really fast through the project here.
Just think of the 5-plex in the middle, the triplex or in the back at the base of the hill.
Yeah, so these are all 33 and a little, and then this is the only one that's 35. in actuality, damn it, in reality.
She was asking about.
I think she was,
the
I think she
very,
was looking at 8 and 9.
the very, very back, that's right by the big multifamily buildings that sits, if you're driving
there.
down the ramp, yeah,
That one.
This is all part of lot 7.
Yeah,
They're all
that's
they're all the same height.
so that's 35-ish.
No, it's 33,
well-
33 something, 30, a little less than 34.
Okay. Thank you.
And it
Yeah.
uses the parking
Putting back,
garage there too.
that's where I was going with that other one.
Yeah, when we do stacked flats, you have to increase the space between the floors, and that pushes that height up a little bit.
So that's because of the fact that you're prefabbing these.
No, it's because they're
No.
stacked, they're stacked flats, and so they have to have a better fire separation between the unit below and above. So it's actually a wider floor that separates the units.
To get the fire rating,
Yeah, those are kind of that's the party wall effectively.
right?
Yeah, and it throws you into IBC code, and they're actually a lot of trouble, but I really like single level living, and
Right.
I know that there's a lot of people who are looking for single level living, and not many people do it because it's quite expensive but it also I think makes for a great product, and it also makes for a product that can be ADA. So
Right.
those
So
12 units that are served by the elevator are all ADA ready, and also, create single level living for people, which, I'm only in my 40s, but I really appreciate.
we all have bad knees. Yeah, that's correct. And we also, don't forget, part of our housing plan, we're trying to encourage people to retire as well. So we're anticipating a full demographic of people that are living here, small, younger families, and with people that don't maybe are empty nesters or whatever, but they just don't want to deal with the stairs. And of the units that you can find in our town and our community. So, I mean, we got stairs, man. Look at Taylor Street. Tom, I'm sure that you love your stairs every day when you're there.
It's a cardiac event just to go to my bedroom. It's great.
It keeps you in shape without having to work out. Yeah, exactly. And so that's what we're trying to just have a full mix of actual houses that people want and need. That's our goal.
So what do you need from us, Scott?
Well, that seems like a good segue into housing. Tori is on our meeting and probably would love to speak and help us with the housing discussion.
Okay.
Okay, I can stop sharing my screen for now and we'll come back to it. Okay. Tori, if you're there.
Hi, all. I'm here. Tori Franks with the Eagle County Housing and Development Authority. If you don't know me,
Please state your address.
my address, 38 Cameron Place, Edwards, Colorado.
Thank you.
Yep. And yeah, it is official. The town of Minturn and the Eagle County Housing Department have entered into an IGA where the Valley Home Store, which is the real estate arm of the Eagle County Housing Department, is going to help Minturn by providing some housing services. One of the scopes of work I think are going to do for the town of Minturn is program administration. So if and when these deed restricted units do come out of the ground and have folks living in them, we can help sell. We can do annual compliance to ensure that the owners or the occupants are still living, in accordance with the deed restriction or whatever mechanism the town decides to restrict the unit with. But another piece I think we're in what we're doing today is helping the town sort of review developments in accordance with their policies. And I know the town has a relatively new housing ordinance, And it's my understanding that this Belden Place gets to be sort of the guinea pig in bringing through a development that is sort of responding to the ordinance for the first time. So what I did, it was back in May, so a couple weeks ago, I know I was pretty late in getting my referral letter out, but hopefully you've had a chance to look at it, and I'm happy to answer any questions. But what I did there was sort of my read on the town's housing ordinance and their guidelines, and comparing it with what Belden Place is proposing. And the short answer there is Belden Place does seem, from my perspective, to be exceeding what the ordinance is requiring with regard to like number of units that they are proposing to provide that would be eventually deed restricted. I did provide a couple of little, I don't know, informational suggestions that I would recommend that the town consider. Mainly, it was just sort of like terminology cleanup. So make sure that your, like, whatever Belden Place's PUD guide says and how it refers to a qualified household, make sure that's the same definition you're using in your ordinance and your guidelines, so you know that everything sort of fits as you're sort of moving forward into administration. And then a couple of minor questions. So short answer on my read of the Belden Place is that yes, the housing plan is exceeding the ordinance. And then, and I don't know, and Scott, I can't quite see you, but I know you're there. I heard your voice. If we wanted to get into some of my further suggestions about sort of just the ordinance and how I think it might function and some of the improvements I suggested, or if we're just going to focus on Belden Place tonight.
Thanks, Tori. I think maybe we could do both in context to Belden and not only your comments and some of the discussions we've had with Jenna and Allison about, you know, if it's a strong housing plan, it's exceeding our ordinance requirements, how can it be better? How can the county perhaps work with the applicant as these units get built and sold? You know, I think some of your other comments had to do with, you know, as we improve the ordinance and now we're starting to implement it, you know, does 200% AMI actually work? And if not, then, you know, that's a policy decision for the town to consider. But now's a good time to talk about that. And if that, does that make sense?
Yeah. So I can sort of use Belden Place as our example, because that's what we're talking about today. You know, they are exceeding your housing guidelines. They're providing 4 price capped units in accordance with your ordinance. And those units, which is 10% of the total project. And then they're providing 20 resident occupied units, and that's 50% of the total project. And in my experience and sort of my read of sort of what's being proposed is those RO units, the resident occupied, the 50%, they fit, they look like a lot of all RO units that we see up and down the valley. You know, Vale has tons, Edwards has some, Eagle has some. If anyone's familiar with 6 West in Edwards, that's a good resident occupied rental project. Brett Ranch is a good resident occupied for sale project. So those RO units feel very familiar, and I think they go a long way in trying to address the issues for the missing middle. I'm sure you may have heard that terminology. So sort of those not necessarily low income folks, but maybe folks that can't afford, you know, the full on market price units here that we're seeing in the valley. Where I got a little concerned was the 4 price capped units. And again, Belden Place is giving you exactly what your ordinance is asking for, but I think the ordinance is has a couple of issues that you may want to consider. It price caps units at 200% AMI. And in reading through your ordinance and your guidelines, the price cap is really only that. You're setting the initial sales price at prices that are affordable to households earning 200% AMI. What that language is not doing is restricting buyers from an income side. So anyone, technically, who meets your definition of an eligible household, which is essentially somebody who lives and works in Eagle County, could buy these units. You are not restricting on income. And I apologize that I sort of wasn't a part of sort of the development of this policy. And I sort of have a hunch that maybe that was why you all landed on 200% AMI. But I think, oh good, I did provide some numbers, so sort of some rough sketches of what 200% AMI is. And for a 2-bedroom house in, it doesn't matter what type of a unit, just 2 bedrooms, it's $646,000. So in sort of my experience in the real estate market and deed restricted market, that's not quote affordable. So a price capped unit is generally your most affordable and it's your most restrictive. So you want to start it at the lowest possible initial sales price, and then it sort of goes from there. The other main issue with the price capped units that that the ordinance addresses is that there's no appreciation cap. So you're going to start at a price, and then it can go wherever it wants to go, wherever the market's going to take it. That feels very similar to an RO. That's sort of like the idea of the RO, is it's not really capped at any price, and the market's going to take the price where it goes. Price capped units are generally needing to have an appreciation cap so that big affordability on the front end is maintained over time. I think those are sort of the high points of the concerns I had with it. But if you all had any questions or comments, or would like to talk about any of my comments, I'm totally open to doing that. Sorry, I'm getting like an awful glare off my screen and I look like I'm sitting in the sun, but it's 8 o'clock at night.
Tom, do you have any questions?
Not really. Well, yes, obviously, Tori, thank you. We actually did discuss in detail your memo at the last meeting. I think undiscussed business, as we wrapped up last time, was the discussion of the AMI calculation. So I guess the question to everyone is this the point where we want to discuss this further in light of the information and comparative analysis that Tori gave in her memorandum? Since obviously it's re-emphasized that 200% AMI misses the mark if we're going to talk about affordability for the demographic that we're talking about.
Jeff?
Well, I guess to dovetail off of that, we're kind of in between a rock and a hard spot here, because we've sat here before and reviewed plans and realized some past problems in our code. And I guess to make a long story short, what always ends up coming out of those discussions is you have to review the project as presented under the current code. And if you don't like the code, you can't deal with it, change the code, deal with changing the code, be proactive to change the code, but you can't necessarily strap the applicant. You have to review the project under the current code. So we are quickly finding out, I think, that some of the work that we did to get to this first current draft of our housing ordinance is now being applied to a project, and it's being applied to another, big project in town as well. And, Tori's been doing this for a long time. She probably knows more than most in the valley about what works, what doesn't work in the valley, because they've built this from the ground up. And it kind of sounds to me like, what she's telling us is that it doesn't work. And I guess one of my concerns, not just for this project, but for a lot of projects that might be coming down the pipe, is as much as we want to, at the end of the day, the only thing that matters is to find affordable housing, true affordable housing that works. And if 200% doesn't work, and if the way the language of the PUD guide states is, it's going to be offered at these price capped 200% EAMI for a period of time, and then if nobody comes to that party, and then it goes to market value. Am I wrong to understand that?
Jenna, interrupting, but I don't think that's the case. That was sort of an additional sales process for the RO units, right?
No, that was for the how we sell them. For the tier to sell. No, the price, the deeds have always been for forever.
They're permanent, and those don't go away. It was trying to give Minturnites, if that's the correct term, sort of first crack at all units in the development. The deed restrictions would, whatever units those are, those would always be permanent. And right? Okay.
Yep. No, that's correct.
Yeah. So I'm hearing what you're saying, and it's like you have an ordinance that you worked really hard on, and now when we're applying it, we're seeing a couple of issues that we didn't quite think through. And I don't know how far the council is willing to go, or the applicant's willing to go, but my thought in sort of like compromise is, if I would not recommend going forward with these 200% AMI units. They're gonna fail. There's no appreciation cap. They're gonna compete directly, likely from a pricing perspective, with your RO units, which is just not what you want to do. So my thought is, if there's Scott, I don't know if this is even allowed, like in the town, or how the council may or may want to deal with this, is can you talk to the applicant and say, okay, these price cap units aren't quite what we were hoping for. Can we add a couple more RO units to make up for that? Move forward with Belden Place if that's sort of the direction that the town wants to go, and then maybe head back and look at that ordinance again and kind of tighten up places that you may want to in the future.
I'll just jump in here 1 second. So we did already exceed the RO units up to 50%. If the council commission would prefer to convert the deed restricted ones to RO units, in addition, those 4 units, in addition to the 50% that we offered, I'm fine with that. It would take a lot more analysis on my part to go other places, but I can volunteer that.
Tori, I'm going to volunteer the county since Kim brought it up. And I know this is not an official offer, but it was, thinking out loud about, the county stepping in and buying down some of those units. If the deed restriction and price cap is what we need and want.
Yeah, I think the housing authority might be interested in a buy down program, but I can tell you we would not be investing in a deed restricted unit that doesn't have a price cap appreciation on it.
Understood.
Yeah.
So
So I think if Belden Place moves forward with RO, I think that like they're exceeding your ordinance, and they are providing some workforce housing. Half of their project is going to be restricted in one way or another. I think where Kim was talking about sort of a potential buy down, I think the potential is still there, but we would need to do some cleanup on the price cap deed restriction to get us to a place where we are comfortable in investing dollars. We'd want to see that investment protected over time, which would translate into an appreciation cap.
Okay, thanks for clarifying that. And
Yeah.
I think, for the commission's purposes, I think that is something that could be a condition of approval, that the applicant continues to work, and I think it actually is listed as a condition of approval that they continue to work with the town and with Eagle County Housing and Development Authority to investigate those possibilities.
Hey, Scott, can I say something for a second? You can't leave me with a condition that goes on for a long time where I can't take any reservations because I don't know what I can price my units at. So I just want to throw that out there because, I don't know how long it would take to get county approval to buy down units and to price cap them. And that's something I'm totally willing to work with Kim and Tori on. And I like the idea, but to make it a condition that we have to live with for, more than a couple of weeks would then make it so I couldn't even, let people know it was coming or what the prices might be, or, just keep that in mind. I can't be stuck not knowing what I can charge for the units for a long period while we work through this.
Understood. Sounds like we've got a couple weeks then.
Can I want to go down the road just so we all understand it. Take me through the process as you guys, because I know that, like Tori said, this is kind of a marketing sales angle. The units, the 4 units as the current language of the PUD exists now, and the price cap being what it is at 200% AMI, it first gets offered to Minturn residents, then it gets offered to Eagle County residents. And if nobody comes to that party and meets the criteria and wants to buy these at 200% AMI, then what?
Then it's still restricted. So the only people that can buy those 4 units and those 20 RO units are I don't know if the language we use is eligible households, and I know you use
Qualified
households.
Yeah, qualified buyers.
Those are the only people that can ever buy it. So the sales incentive that was included in the housing plan is for the other, 22 units, Jenna, that, yeah. So the deed restricted units kind of have their own sales process. The free market units have this other sales process that's sort of built in to try to give those Minturn and then Eagle County residents first crack at the free market units. What I see happening is for those 4 units that are price capped at 200% AMI, they're coming out of the gate at $646 for a 2-bedroom and $746 for a 3-bedroom.
Right.
Those units are going to stay on the market until Allison and her people can sell them to a qualified buyer.
Right. And so we really appreciate, because we were kind of been asking, like, we don't know, we're just doing what the code says. And this came up, and we don't want to get stuck with these units, even if our intentions are for the locals. We do want something to work. We'd much rather have the resident occupied units on all our units so that it's cleaner and simplified, so we know what's happening, versus, to your point, Tori, we have these further restricted units that are not going anywhere. So yeah.
And I will say, and it might be sort of built into the thinking, but we may have to sort of go there, is, so, you know, Allison comes out with this 2-bedroom unit, 646. Let's say, I bet you someone would buy it, like they would. But if for some reason they couldn't afford it, then Allison could lower her price, which I know she doesn't want to do. And, you know, we've had these hard conversations with usually resell. So folks like who lived in Miller Ranch in the downturn, we would calculate their maximum sales price on paper. It would be one number and the market was somewhere below that. So again, that's not a place that you want to be, that Allison wants to be, that the Valley Home Store, likely the administrators of those units in the future want to be. Again, these units are supposed to be the ones that come on the market and have a wait list of 20 people immediately trying to get to that unit because it is so affordable. And then you're going to preserve its affordability over time with an appreciation cap. Hopefully the RO units are priced just a touch under your market units so that folks that make a little bit more money can get into those units and they're not competing with the second homeowner. So that's sort of how, like, the stack of what deed restrictions usually look like in a project.
Allison and Jenna, are you guys opposed to the appreciation cap?
On the
four, no.
No, and like I said, we put what the code said. We just were doing that. We're not, obviously we want to meet the spirit intention of what was approved by the town. We're just finding out that it has a little bit, it's our boat's leaky. And you know, I don't see, since we're doing a PUD, if somebody, you know, whatever ends up being in the spirit of time and efficiency and, you know, holding us up because the ordinance doesn't make sense. If we just had, you know, whatever our program is, we could add a clause in the event that Eagle County wants to buy some units down. I mean, you can do that. I don't see why the zoning is going to affect. If you wanted to buy a couple resident and occupied yourself. And
I don't think it even needs to be in the additional things that we might work out with Eagle County doesn't need to be a condition. It was just something that we're going to work with them and see if there's something that comes up that makes sense.
Right. And this is the same thing.
I mean, this is above and beyond what was required of the application. So once you get above what's required of the application, I think it can be something we can work out with them. Or if they say, hey, we're going to invest in this other project, then, you know, we're not conditioned that they have to buy our units.
Correct. And this is the same thing as if a free market unit, if someone said, you know what, I want to be a better citizen of Eagle County and I want to approach, you know, whether it's a Town of Vale, their program, they do it, or Eagle County, and say, hey, I want to sell you a deed restriction on my house. And you guys came in and you said, okay, we'll buy it. And you bought down a free market unit in any subdivision, or non-subdivision. It's the same type of thing. I don't think our PUD is affected by whatever agreements a private property owner has, in this case, as an example, with Eagle County. There's nothing that says you can't do this, you know, after the fact.
Right. Yeah, we don't have to burden the PUD process with things above and beyond that, you know, we may try to work out to do great things with the county.
Absolutely. And we'd love to. The thing is, to Scott's point, holding us up because the ordinance isn't right, there's going to have to be a concession to accept that, ooh, this is not great. Hey, let's just allow them to exceed the RO and call it a day. And then, like I said, after the fact, there's still potential there to keep working on this.
Well, a couple of questions. One for Tori, not to put you on the spot. What is the current Eagle County AMI?
For 2021, I have it on my desktop. Hold on. It's for a family of 4. I think it's 98,300.
Okay. So that said, obviously, I think everybody's universally in favor of quite a few different goals, but obviously trying to move things forward. So the question to the county, I'm going to do math in public, which is always bad. But if we're going to sit here and say hypothetically, we're going to throw 150% AMI on the 4 units. And granted, appreciation is normally a percentage increase over years. But if we just, for mathematical purposes, says the appreciation cap is at 2021, 200% AMI, realistically for the county, what number do you need to participate and contribute funds at that point? What is going to cause the county to say thumbs up?
It's a good question. I think we would, so I'm going to fall back on, sort of the county's policies. Our initial sales price calculations can range between 100 and 140% AMI, and then appreciation is capped at 3%. So we would want to see something closer to that. If we were looking to like buy it down, we would have to do the analysis and sort of see, usually it would be a lot of conversation with Allison and Jenna about, price per deed restriction. But the must-haves are appreciation cap and a reasonable initial sales price, because we can't go into, we've seen price cap deed restrictions units fail, and it is really a bummer deal all around for owner, buyer, seller, town. And these ones they're just not quite set up the way I think for success. Again, I think the RO units are good to go.
Yeah,
So
and on the, go ahead, Tom.
Based on the table you've got there, your optimum AMI calculation for Belden Place would be what?
I mean, you're really putting me on the spot here.
I wouldn't put you on the spot. I lied.
Well, let me buy you a second while you think about it, Tori, because on the development side, if you're developing for 100% AMI, you don't pay what I paid for the land. You don't pick the labor like I did. You design things differently. You don't have the open space that we have. I mean, you develop a project for 100% AMI, and it's a completely different thing. So doing a 200% AMI, and honestly, I have my numbers on those units right now. I have less than the 200% AMI, but I'm also watching, construction prices go up 40% here, and they're supposed to come back down. Right now they're not at 646 or 746 for a 2-bedroom, but you develop a project specifically to get to those lower AMIs. You can't slap 100% AMI at the end of a project.
Well, or you have
that bought you a little bit of time, Tori.
I don't disagree with any of that. Where I'm going with this is obviously we're looking at a differential. So the initial known factor was 200%. Don't disagree with that at all. And not trying to sway the bill to go in opposite direction. I'm just trying to fill the void of what was planned for and what our other objective is in regards to the deed restriction. So for the county to fill in the difference to get you to your original calculation versus what said proposed buyer is going to pay, that's the open-ended question that I'm looking at right now.
Well, but I think it's more like, what does Minturn want, less than what the county wants. This is Minturn. This is a project in Minturn, and I think so. Who is Minturn targeting? I've heard a lot of talk about we want lights on at night. We want people living in Minturn. That's why Jenna said they put that sort of sales incentive in there to give the Minturnites the first crack at it. Okay, now take that like a level, drill that down a level lower. Are we focusing on certain, a good way for people to think about it is certain job titles. Stuff that comes up often is teachers, firefighters, nurses, EMTs. Okay, what are those folks making? What can they afford? And then you're kind of building from there. I think what Allison just said was like super telling is that she's pricing her units from a construction side less than what your maximum sales price calculations are. That's like totally opposite. I know you guys are understanding that, but and that was sort of my hunch in when I looked at these numbers, as I was like, it's just too high. So I think if the town gets to a place where they're saying, okay, we're going to get 10% of these projects of Belden Place, these 4 units, these are our most affordable, most valuable units. Who do we want living in those? And I think when you can answer that question, then maybe you're sort of starting in at a different AMI level. It's going to be under 200% AMI.
Well,
at that point, I think then the county or the housing authority can come in and say, okay, Allison, like it looks like you've got, these 4 units at X. Can we get 2 more or something like that?
Well, the other factor is, Tori, to what Allison said also, is that we'd have to plan things differently. That means that the town would have to be willing to, let's say, let's just hypothetically, if we had our multifamily in the back, right? We have how many, units on that lot? Well, to get to 100 AMI, the town would have to accept that we'd have to go for a higher density to be able to accomplish that as well, or someone has to cough up some money to offset the impacts of construction. And that's the key factor. What is the willingness of the town also to accept in order to accomplish their goals? And that's a whole different conversation. That's why you have to design and build according to the outcome from the beginning. And that's when you, like I said, you get in density, you get into smaller units, you get into, one building with like 15 studios. I mean, who knows? But they just have to accept that reality. And all of a sudden, now we have to allow for on-street parking, because to have a garage to have that much density under one property, I mean, that would be huge. And that's a huge cost. So they're all related. It's not just like one way or the other. It's almost impossible, I think, moving forward for anyone on the private side to come in and do this voluntarily, to have the deed restricted price caps without help or things all the information up front, or some allowances with no question that they can be denied based on their design, because they said, okay, if you're going to do affordable housing, you get 20 units per acre. There's no question. No one can stand up and say, I hate that. That's where that means also.
Yeah, and I've had some great conversations with Kim, previous, not related to this project, but I mean, I would, we were talking about that, 1+ is an ideal unit, getting into, certain different demographics. And I would love to, I actually have a lot of ideas for designing 100% AMI project, but I can't do it with what I paid for this land.
Right.
Right, and I'm in violent agreement with everything everybody just said. I'm there. Where I'm going with this is, as alluded to earlier and Scott brought up, this is really 2 separate conversations occurring in parallel. One is, what are we doing with Belden Place to fix that one glitch, if you will, that highlights, as Jeff pointed out, where we've come to the realization that maybe all that discourse that led to 200% AMI might need more fidelity. So I'm driving at the point of, where can we go right now with Belden Place in regards to deed restricted or RO as discussed, and how that can be fixed fairly quickly. And as you already brought up, your planning factors, at the same time, branching off for further discussion with council, everybody else, about what we're going to do with this code, which obviously brings into light what Jenna already said, you said as well, which is, hey, when we're going to put in an AMI calculation, that also comes with an understanding that these other entities are to contribute, because there's no other flipping way we're going to get there and make, quote, Minturn unless all these other things happen. So I'm in agreement. I'm just pointing out, for tonight's purposes, the question remains, to meet your requirement in regards to not sitting around twiddling your thumbs, wondering what you're going to list at. So how do we crack that nut at the same time we go down and revisit our code? That's all I got.
add something to the conversation, please? So, hi, everyone. I'm not on camera, but my name is Michelle Matier, and I'm the town manager here in Minturn. And I'd like to thank Tori and the Valley Home Store. They were very helpful when we were putting our housing ordinance through. And it was all with very good intentions. That being said, we always learn as we go. And like many government documents, they improved with the fluidity. And I think we're seeing the need for some improvement here. The goal from the Minturn Town Council, and I believe the commission at the time, was lights on in people's homes. And what I'm hearing from Tori is that these 4 200% AMI deed restricted units are really going to cause some problems down the road. And that's not the intention of this ordinance, even with its hiccups. I wonder, for the purposes of the build and place conversation, if we consider converting those 4 units, haven't talked to Scott, so I'm totally going right here. If we consider converting those 4 units to just the resident occupied option instead and move forward. And we will then, of course, come back, work with Tori on the ordinance itself. We knew when we were working on the ordinance originally, it was going to be really tough to get that, 100 to 140 AMI with land prices here in Minturn. And we were trying to find where that would fit in. So I think more conversation should be had with that, with commission and council and the public to figure out how we can tweak that. But in the meantime, I wonder if turning those additional 4 from the deed restricted of the AMI into the RO option is a solution for this situation. And Allison, I don't have any idea what that does to your numbers or not.
I volunteered, Michelle, a little bit ago, if we wanted to convert those 4 deed restricted to RO, I can make that commitment without having to consult with anyone right now.
And I apologize that I didn't talk to Scott before.
Jenna or Allison, could I request something though, just so the public who might be watching this or studying this, can you give us once more the qualifications for an RO?
Yep, Jenna's got that, and it's also in your packet.
Yeah.
I'd like to state at the meeting.
Yeah. Yep. I'm on it. Hang on 2 seconds here. Get to my appendix. So we have the Attainable Housing Program. It is Appendix A of our PUD. We have Local Buyers Program, and this is on all levels. We have 3 different levels right now, but if we turn the deed restricted 10% into the RO, then we would just have 2 levels. And they are restricted to be occupied by residents on a full-time basis. And you have to be a qualified buyer, which just means that you work, you're recognized as someone who has a presence here for a certain amount of time and qualifiers. And that's it. It's not how much you make. It's just really, and you have to qualify as getting a loan. Obviously it acts just like a free market unit, except that you have to swear that you are going to live there full time effectively.
Actually, you have to get qualified by Tori, and
Jenna, usually those buyers are showing us that they live and work in Eagle County or Minturn. So when they are coming to us, they are showing us a lease or something that they're residents, and then they're showing us W-2 or profit and loss or where their business is registered, so that we can see they are proving to us that they live and work in the county.
Correct. And now our program goes a little bit further, which also allows you to rent to a full-time resident too, because I feel that we've lost a lot of our rental properties around. So we didn't want to just say that you have to owner occupied. It is resident occupied full-time. And that is a big distinguishing factor between our program and some other programs, because I think that's not practical. If someone's mother got sick outside of state and you had to go back, out there and live there, and you need to rent out your unit, you should be able to do that. We all learned from the pandemic that society only works on a normal level. And if anything goes that is not at a normal level, in air quotes, then something has to be flexible for that. So hopefully that answers your questions. I can get into the real specifics, but effectively you have to prove that you are of this place. Minturn residents have to show they have proof of physical address, that they've lived here for a certain time. Eagle County does do the same thing, but they're not geographically limited. They could be from Vail, they could be from Gypsum, they could be from Edwards. So that's the difference between what we have. Hopefully that answers your question, Lynn.
Forward with this is, does that mean that they have to show that they work and contribute to working in this valley?
Except that we allow for retirees as well, but they have to show that they did contribute in our county or in the town of Minturn for a certain period of time, and then they retired, and then they could buy one of these units.
And still contribute.
And they're still contributing as valuable people of an important demographic.
Who are full-time residents. I mean, the
Yeah,
point is to
absolutely.
get people who live full-time in Minturn and spend their time, energy, and money and contribute to the community.
Yep.
And
go ahead.
Allison, so as the language reads now, whatever the price is for those resident occupied units, they are not price appreciation capped as we speak?
No.
No, that was not part of the requirement.
It's not. And Tori, that's not, you're not suggesting that.
No, I'm not. Those resident occupied units are designed to, there is no initial sales price, and then there is no appreciation. So theoretically, by restricting who can own and live in them, that's, the theory is that's creating its own market by you're excluding those second homeowners.
That model has worked in the valley over time?
Your neighbors just to the east of you, Town of Vail, have invested millions of dollars into programs like that. A good example, that's their Vail Indeed, sort of to the verbatim pretty much. Another example, again, is Brett Ranch. I'm not sure if you're familiar. It's a 150 some odd condos in Edwards. There is a transfer fee there, but if you can prove that you live and work in Eagle County, you don't pay the transfer fee. So that's another sort of example similar to like a resident occupied. There's lots of them in Pitkin County. But again, like these are not going to be your $250,000 units. Like that's not what this is. This is sort of that missing middle attainable housing units.
Madam Chair, Commissioners, can I just jump in real quick just to bring this around? Tori, you started this off by saying that Beltway Place is kind of a guinea pig. And I think they've done a great job. They've exceeded our ordinance. And to Tom's point, I think, there's a delta there. We have, I think, a pretty, not a very wide gap between something that works and something that doesn't work. And if we have a PUD guide and a housing program that is meeting or exceeding the ordinance, and we have a chance to get 4 deed restricted price cap units with some additional work without holding the applicant up, to me, there's an opportunity to work on that. And if it is a situation where if it can't be worked out, where it actually works for the applicant, because I think that may be more important. If they're trying to sell units and people really, they can't sell those, or there's just, the issue that Tori brought up, then it doesn't work in this development. And the fallback to that would be to convert those into, as Michelle pointed out, RO units. That to me is not a worst case scenario. That's the main goal of the council, was to get locals housing. And there was more focus on that. And there was, remember, we were starting with 20% deed restricted. That got whittled down to 10%. So we have something. I guess I'm encouraging us all to not throw that out just yet. And if that's the last ditch effort and converting those to RO, fine. But I think we're close, and if we can continue to work on that, or if the applicant can work with the county without holding themselves up, that's all I'm suggesting.
So you'd rather leave it as is for now?
Yeah.
And let it ride? Or put the provision in there?
Well, there's time between now and council. There's time between a preliminary plan approval and a final plan approval and a final plat. We've got some time to work this out. I understand that Allison needs to start pricing and marketing these units. I get that. All I'm suggesting is we're not there tonight.
Allison, would your price change from where it is, where the language sits now with those 4 units? And if you turned them into ROs, does the price change?
Not really.
Right. So is there there's no real danger leaving it as is, let it ride for a couple of weeks, right?
A couple of weeks after council, then there could be. So yeah, I just want to figure out where are we trying to go from where we are. Yeah.
To add to that question, what is your threshold of pain? Like you just said, you want Scott illuminate or illustrated, you want to put them on the market. So how long? You said a couple weeks, 2 weeks, as we were discussing, working out the deed restriction and appreciation cap. What is your limit?
Well, my big factor is I'm still waiting to get prices for my modular pieces from Champion. So I don't know exactly where I can go. I know that on those 4 units, I was definitely staying under 200, and I was being optimistic that I was going to do better than that. I don't know. I don't know exactly right this now where I don't know how low I could go because I don't have all my costs yet. Okay.
I'm not asking the price specifically, the duration of time you can wait because of what you just said. You're waiting for material and estimates and so forth. So the question Scott is kind of pitching out there is the duration of time you can wait that, and as Jeff just pointed out, we can float this to work out. You've already calculated your numbers. It's to work out the delta. So what is that period of time that is palatable to you for us to do that?
Would be ideal. Yeah, a couple of weeks wouldn't make a big difference in what I'm doing. I can rearrange things
basically to the next P&Z meeting. 2 weeks from today.
I hope we're going to move on today.
Right. What you're saying is just date wise you're talking about, because we can't table this just to work on a scenario. Right. Because our time frame is extremely important for us to keep moving forward.
So if we're gonna move forward, put conditions tonight, and the conditions are with a timetable, the town, the staff, et cetera, they're gonna work on this in conjunction with the county, with the town. If this doesn't pan out, they convert to RO.
Correct.
And we keep moving forward.
Right. And yes, that's exactly
as long as we can keep the process moving, I'm okay with putting a 2 week
and so
time limit for us to see what we can pan out. Yes.
Just trying to define language for that.
Absolutely.
As long as it's not a requirement that we come back to P&Z to have that discussion. If we can have that discussion with staff and then keep moving with staff.
Right.
That would be good.
Yeah.
And then we can firm it up we'll come back to you for a final plan. So that's when it could be memorialized some more.
And God, correct me if I'm wrong, that pretty much falls under the process anyways, correct?
Correct.
Just quick clarification, the ordinance and your own housing plan don't say anything about offering deed restrictions below 200%. It just says that it can't exceed 200%. So if there's a willingness and an interest and a way to get to something less than 200% EMI, not for every single one of those 4 units, but maybe for a couple of them, I don't know what that is. Okay. That's what I'm suggesting. And to your point, Allison, if it's something that gets worked out with staff and on the county side and the town side, that's all I'm suggesting.
Great. So we can explore that within the next 2 weeks to see what that means and make a hard decision. And the condition would be that to allow, our willingness is there. If we can get it lower, we can. But if something happens, let's just back up. The concern is, of course, is what Allison is saying. If her numbers come back in and we just can't pull it off without help, we can't have units that we're going to lose money on. That's the whole point. So we have to have some sort of guarantee that, we get this worked out in 2 weeks and it seems reasonable and we go forward. And if it still doesn't work, because we were planning on 200, we have to be able to revert those to RO. That's the bottom line.
That dovetails the question over to Tori. Same question to the county. Amount of time to staff this and come back with a thumbs up, thumbs down based on numbers you are happy or unhappy with.
Right.
Yeah.
And they may not want to either, Tori. You guys might go, you know what? This is not the project to nitpick this over. Go RO for now. Hey town, let's work on for the next project. I mean, I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I think we can at a staff level look at it and kind of see if we can even get it to a place to elevate it. Because, but I can tell you, I don't think the county is quite as nimble as maybe the town of Minturn. So I don't think I could even get on a board agenda in 2 weeks to get that approval. But we can do the analysis and have a conversation with Allison and Jenna and sort of see where we think the sweet spot might be, see where they can come down on, and then measure the delta from there. If we're feeling good, then I think we would then have to take that to our board to approve like a potential partnership. But again, I think you don't have to.
I'm sorry.
Oftentimes the way it works with Eagle County is sort of a plan is approved, and if there can be an enhancement to the plan post approval, that's when the housing authority comes in and facilitates that financially. So again, not quite sure how comfortable the town is with sort of, we've approached a couple of these projects in the past with kind of a housing plan A and housing plan B option. And so it's like, if this happens, then this, if not, it goes to all RO. That could be an option as well. That gives you the opportunity to keep moving, and it gives us the opportunity to like really crunch numbers and get approval.
Excuse me, I don't mean to interrupt, but we need to try to get this rounded up if we're going to try to continue on with everything else this evening.
Sure.
I personally agree with Scott.
No, I just move we document this condition.
I would like to try to see us hang on to the deed restricted if possible first, and if not, then we know what we can do. That's my feeling. Jeff?
I think that that's all fine and good. I think the intention is good with that. I have some opinions as far as what I really think how this is really going to go. And I think the timing of it, I think the way that what our authority is. And frankly, I really think that the elephant in the room is the fact that this project is so far down the road in terms of design and the criteria that was used to design it. As Allison said, if you're going into a project and designing it to 100% AMI, you design it a certain way. This was designed at 200% AMI. And if we want to ask the applicant to go back and give us 4 units that are at 140% AMI, that is a complete redo all over the board. And so that's not just the product that, there's those numbers don't just get applied to 4 homes, they impact the entire project. So I really feel like we are at a point where I think we're going to have to vote on the fact that we would rather they stay at 200% AMI and give them the option to turn them into ROs. And I don't know that we can do much more than that.
Is that somewhere we can go with that tonight? Sure. Chris?
Agreed. Just to be on the record, this is going to be a beautiful project. I have to say, just listening tonight, I am sad to hear that teachers, it's probably not the project for them. But again, it wasn't really made for them, but it saddens me. But yes, I agree. If we can keep the deed restricted, great. If we can't, let's just move them to ROs and move on.
Elliot?
Am I on? Is this working?
Yes, we can hear you.
Thank you. You know, I really want to be respectful to you guys as developers and what you've done so far. And I think to throw kind of a heavy wrench into the works right now is really hard. I mean, you have a model, you have your time and materials all, you know, hashed out on a spreadsheet somewhere. And I think if we try and change things right now, I think it's really going to put a hiccup in things. You know, from my perspective, I think it looks like a really, really good project. You know, but, you know, is this the one for the teachers? I don't know. But I think that, you know, if the model is set at 200% AMI with these 4 price cap units, then, you know, I think that's the kind of the way we have to go going forward right now.
Can I ask Tori a question?
I'm sorry.
I said, may I ask Tori a question? Are you in the middle of, sorry, you're in the middle of commission responses. I'll wait.
Comment from Tom, and then you can, yes, thank you. Tom, you want to give a last thought?
Well, I think there's, to reiterate, there is a secondary objective here. And, you know, I apologize that the applicant has to kind of sit in the churn as it occurs. But if we look at the bigger picture here for a minute, not necessarily asking them to change their model, but as Scott has brought up, if it's palatable to the applicant, we'll set 2 weeks. Am I highly optimistic that we're going to get there from here in regards to the differential for deed restriction? No. Will it probably convert to an RO? Yes. However, to at least go through the process to reach the secondary objective, which is revisiting our code and what's in the realm of the possible, I would suggest or recommend that we at least put in the condition with the time metric of 2 weeks that allows the staff, the county, the applicant to at least interact and look at those numbers and see what's possible. At the end of that, is the county going to be able to approve it? Probably not, based on what Tori just said in regards to the timeline. But at least we've gone through the steps, because consider the tone in the room as far as sadness right there off the bat, that it's unfortunate that Belden's not going to be the place for teachers, the firemen, et cetera. So at least we're doing the math and going through the steps. And in 2 weeks, if it's not panning out, then it converts to RO and we keep moving on. That's my thought and recommendation.
Allison, would you like one last question, Tori, before we?
I might have answered it in my head. But yeah, you can definitely, I mean, the deed restriction, the way you wrote it in the code, we're absolutely committed to. So we're obviously not withdrawing that. So you are saying if we can keep the deed restriction, you definitely can keep the deed restriction as it's written, no doubt. So.
Well, but in the same breath, though, we don't want to get stuck with a deed restricted unit price cap. That's not going to sell either. So we do want to discuss this a little bit further. We'd like our you know, in the big part of the world, we'd love to make this work. That satisfies everybody. Within 2 weeks, we'll evaluate, we'll now do analysis, see what we can make work. Because that makes me real nervous, what Tori said about, like, you're going to get stuck with these. Well, we don't want to get stuck with these either. So we have to have some sort of reversion to RO in there at a minimum. But we would continue to work within 2 weeks. If we come up with it, great. If not, then we're committed to also turning them into RO. That's the bottom line.
Recommendation as a thought. However, I think we would like to add it as a condition tonight that we have those 2 weeks to discuss it. Am I correct? Is that the feeling I'm getting from everybody?
Yeah, I don't know how you verbalize it. I don't know exactly how that means.
Well, you could have a condition that just simply directs the applicant to work with town staff and the staff of Eagle County Housing and Development Authority over a period of the next 2 weeks. If you want to put a time frame on it.
But I guess my question is, what exactly is the objective? Is it to find financing to bridge the gap to bring the 200% down to a lower number because the product's not going to change?
Right.
So.
Yes, I would say the objective is to bring the price down for the buyer.
Right.
And then it's supplemented by said entities. So that is the core objective plus the deed restriction. The timeline, as noted, is unrealistic, but I would like to go down that road and just see for future plan and code development as to what can get done.
Right.
The objective in the condition might be to identify alternatives that get to those lower prices, and that's it. So it's not boxing anybody in. It's not trying to get to a number in 2 weeks because we're not going to get there. And that's all I was suggesting is, continue those conversations if there is a good idea and it can happen, and it works with the applicant in their time frame through preliminary plan approval, through final plat submission and final plat approval. In my mind, we've got some time. As Tori pointed out, there are instances where you approve a housing plan and you have alternatives. And if you can revisit that, you can always amend or update a housing plan. They can still offer these units at anything less than 200% EMI. If they're finding that they can't get buyers and they want to adjust the price so they can, that's an option too. I'm not trying to simplify this, but Allison's the developer. All I'm saying is just have the conversations. If there's a way to get this done, get it done. So both sides win. So
Is it, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
Is it possible maybe by the next meeting, we could just have 3 different scenarios put together? No? Okay.
No, I only say no is because we need to get to town council. Our timeline is extremely strict. We want to, so we can't come back for another planning commission to present to you. That's the problem. But there is still an opportunity with the final plat to tell you what ended up being. We are committed to investigate, to Scott's point. We just can't get held up trying to figure this out. So we can, I can write a flexibility, and what will happen is whatever condition comes up with, like, we will further analyze the 4 deed restricted price cap units with Eagle County, and failing to come up with a very sound program, those units will revert to RO. That will be a condition that would be carried through by town council as well. It doesn't end anything. It just gives us, Allison is extremely motivated in the next 2 weeks to figure this out. And we'll know. And we'll know because we're going to be turning around the final plat application real quick to get it in. So that time frame will work on all sides. The condition, like I said, will just carry through with town council, and then we'll update you guys when we get our final plat to what is going to be, I guess.
But it seems like right now that the plan as is with these 4 price cap deed restricted units, and then the 20 RO units. And then it sounded like without any hesitation, we could do RO for everything. Is that correct?
That's the easy way to do it. We just go to RO and be done with it. And then because here's
hold on, Jenna, not on everything.
No,
everything that's in the program, not on everything.
Yeah. No, I'm not volunteering any additional units, just the units we're talking about. That's one alternative you guys can choose. That's the recommendation you can make to town council.
So those are 2 scenarios that we have that are worked out. Am I correct?
Correct. Now, the big thing is, Belden Place is not going to solve, the housing plan. The whole goal of the housing plan for town of Minturn is to collect these units over a 20-year period. So the next project, there may be opportunities there. We could, someone could cough up a chunk of units or accumulate land like we did, and all of a sudden they be, hey, what can we do? And now there's a new opportunity there. I mean, this is not going to be the beginning and end of this opportunity. It's just the beginning.
Right. And I'm just, pardon me. So I see 2 things here. I see all RO, or then these 4 deed restricted units. Can you do a halfway? Can you do 2 deed restricted units or 1? And then there's more ROs? Is that a possibility?
Well, Yeah, the difference is no matter how you slice it, if we're less than 10%, we're not in accordance with the workforce housing plan, and we have to have acceptance that we can deviate from that workforce housing plan. That's the bottom line.
Okay.
Whatever we can figure out in between now and whatever we'll
Council.
try. Yeah, but we're just short on time.
And we were gonna have we were continuing these conversations with Kim and Tori regardless. I mean, you don't have to put a condition on us in order for us to continue those conversations. But if you want to, we're continuing those conversations anyway. Right.
So Allison, where I need to try to wrap this up.
Yep.
I think what we have discussed is that town staff, Developer, and Eagle County Housing will continue to have the conversations regarding the deed restrictions in the hopes of identifying alternatives. Is that correct? And that will be a condition that we will put in at the end of tonight's. Can we do that now? It will end at the end of the meeting. Are you okay with that? Do you understand where it's going? I think that's the best way to do this right now.
Yep.
Okay. Thank you. So on to the next item, please.
Tori, thank you very, very much.
Yes, thank you, Tori.
Thanks, Tori.
Okay, so we really only had one more thing that we wanted to talk about, just to clean up any discrepancies, and that is just the open space, which generally speaking, you guys seem to be okay with, but we went back through our numbers and because it had been a while since we really looked at like every bit of square foot now that we're kind of at the end and we've got everything to a 95% design. So I just wanted to show you that. So, and so this is what we did. Staff had asked us as a condition just to go through and make sure that everything was there. So we did. Because now we have different parking spaces and stuff like that. And we know more about how everything's going to happen. So as it ends up, we're going to have our deed restrict, or now I'm all deed restricted. All open space dedicated tracks. We have, over 13,000 square feet or 0.3 acres. And that includes the park and the two ends all the way through. And then we looked at lot 7 and nailed down without the parking, what that's going to end up. And that's an extra 10,703 square feet. And then we have another open space easement over here, which is not technically, neither one of these are technically per the code as far as how it's calculated, but we think it's still valid. And it ends up being what we're offering is like almost 23% open space, green space where people can wander around. I just wanted to clarify the numbers because staff had asked to do that and we needed to do it. So there, that's it.
The figure I have is 13,963 square feet. Is that correct?
Nope.
That's
If you,
what I was given.
I understand. We looked at it since then, Lynn. This is the new latest and greatest.
Square footage.
As of today. Yep.
The total is 24,146 square feet or 0.55 acres. It's a total of 23% if you round up open space area or green space areas.
Parking.
Without parking.
Without the parking.
And can I ask one more favor, please?
Sure. Just
something that bothers me more than anything. Can we quit referencing the location of the boneyard as a rationale for the size of the open space and just say our open spaces?
Sure.
Everybody knows the boneyard's there. All the future developments that will be coming in that area know it's there. But I would like the open space to stand alone on its own.
Yep. On the variations, it was really more talking about this project of the last addendum.
I know we're talking about it if the drainage thing develops, but I mean, that's something else. Thank you.
You're welcome.
So is everybody, I'm glad to see that the size increased, Jenna. Thank you very much.
You are most welcome. And then there was a question about the landscaping. Our landscaping and plan includes that landscaping on lot 7. So I don't think that there's any concern about what's going to happen on lot 7. We're not leaving it up to we're not selling the lot off. It's still us. And we already have a plan for that. So I think that's a moot point, just for the record.
While we're saying landscaping, the name of the lilac is Bloomerang.
Bloomerang? Okay, thank you.
And
That's the
it's
fast growing low water.
white lavender, and it also now comes in a dark purple.
Oh, nice. Cool. Awesome. Thank you. And yeah, I mean, aside from that, the only thing I had to wrap up was just saying, you know, and we really appreciate your time tonight, and we don't want to keep you any further. Our level of completion, we have exceeded the general, what you would need to for a regular preliminary plan. We're 95% engineering construction drawings are complete. We're 95% plat completion. We have 98% of our housing plan, except for whatever came up tonight. But it doesn't change the fact that we're still exceeding at least one of the two requirements by quite a substantial amount. We're 90% with Excel energy and the overall electrical design, and we're 90% architectural designs. And then we're just waiting for subdivision improvements agreement on the town to finalize plat notes and certificates. That came up. We had a meeting with the attorney yesterday. Yeah, good Lord. Yesterday, and they're going to be writing certificates that will be incorporated as part of a standard procedure for the town of Minturn. They're just not there yet. So our plat will pick those up when they're done. And then regional drainage design, we're just waiting on to see what happens with land trust to finalize that little nugget. And then, you know, we've already committed to working on housing with, we were going to do it anyway. So that's where we're at. And we just appreciate your time so much. We are very thankful and grateful that you like the project. It's really important.
And have put so much time into understanding it.
So I have 2 quick questions.
Sure.
Obviously, PUD we will hear about at the next stage.
Mhm. Yep.
When we get references so that the population of the development relates to the amount of bedrooms of the development, correct? It's one.
That's how the fiscal impact was created.
Right. So when will we be getting that number?
We have a number. They're estimating 123 people in this project.
Well, how many am I saying this, Jeff?
How many bedrooms?
How many bedrooms, so that we can confirm that? In other words, how many 2-bedroom units, how many 1-bedroom units, how many 3-bedroom units, how many 4-bedroom units? Will we be getting that at the next stage?
No, I think we have it all.
We have it all? I didn't see it.
It's in the fiscal impact, I believe.
Okay. Just saying it's in the fiscal impact, so I'll go back and pull that out.
Okay. But yeah, I mean, at the next part, because you know, we're going to show that we're not going to change anything. We're not going to go backwards. We're not going to deviate. We're not going to want to go less than what we're proposing. So that I think we're going to be consistent, and we will show that consistency with the next stage.
No, you're not showing anything, Jenna, that is technically like unfinished space. So that could be converted someday to bedrooms. I think everything I've seen looks like you're showing, you know, full blown.
Yeah, on the single family homes, we were hoping to offer an option, since some people would like someone like me. Hey, if I can give you an extra, you know, $8,000 spread over my mortgage, I would like to put in a basement. But that's really not a bedroom. You know, it could be, but it'd be more like an office space or a music jam space. That's the only contributing factor, but it's not going to lead to more units. It's not going to lead to, you know, more cars.
Yeah, there's no ADUs or anything.
No, it's a very small thing. And only that, and it's only for a couple of units anyway. So there's really not a lot of room to really deviate from what we've already anticipated.
So I think this is a good time. We need to open up to public opinion. Is there anybody out there?
Is there any other topics you want to go over with regard to the update that was in the packet, or conditions, or
anybody?
Okay. Is there anyone in the public?
We do have a couple people in the public, so if you'd like to speak on this project, please raise your hand. It's a button at the bottom of your screen, and I'll allow you to talk. I apologize. There are a few people in the public, so if you would like to speak, please raise your hand. It's a button at the bottom of your screen, and I'll allow you to talk. I see no raised hands on Jim.
So we can close public opinion. Back to commission. Is everybody sure that they have everything they're thinking of? I guess my only question is, do we know where water is at? They've got some of the taps, right? But then beyond that, we will just have to wait until our situation sorts out. Okay.
I just want a question, was there any questions that we had for drainage? Or it's all?
Do you have any? Jeff?
Do I have questions about drainage?
I mean, yeah.
No, I think usually that stuff gets worked out by the engineers at a higher, smarter level than me.
I mean, at the moment, I think we know that it's currently going to be handled on the parcel.
Correct.
With the possibility of the future having it go under Highway 6.
Yeah, I think that's the main
Barnyard
question,
area.
is whether or not what's gonna happen with the open space and the land trust, and that they'll work that out. Water, I know water goes downhill.
It sure does.
And then when do you see the possibility of the prices of these units coming out?
When we know what we're approved for, and then we come in for, when we have units to be able to sell. It's all timing dependent.
And I have to get costs back.
Exactly.
I recommend we make a motion to approve with conditions and the additional one added there, so those answers can be met.
Does anybody have the additional?
So I'm trying to get to the right page in your packet, but just so you 104.
Hold on.
Sorry.
Go ahead.
Just so you guys make a motion based on findings I provided in the original staff report. Trying to get to that page. 104, 105. There you go.
And then there's some suggested alternatives. You've got five conditions listed between 104 and 105.
There was some suggested language in there for a motion, but you'd also have to include the conditions that we listed in the update memo, if you agree with those. Really, the conditions in the update memo really replace the ones in the original staff report. Does that make sense?
It makes sense, but it's not necessarily written out that way.
Proposed list of conditions, page 61.
Correct.
There's a motion language. Is at the end of the step.
Yeah, and just to be clear, we will be making a motion on the preliminary plan for PUD, the preliminary plat, and the zone change. So 3 separate motions. The only thing that we've attached conditions to is essentially the preliminary plan for PUD. This is a condition, preliminary plan.
Yes. removes the condition of that preliminary plat. Says the applicant shall work with the town attorney and the town engineer to address the outstanding issues related to the preliminary plat prior to the receipt by the town of any final plan or final plat application, but it doesn't necessarily say what those issues are.
So, just to clarify.
Yeah.
The motion language, so like I make a motion,
Yeah.
that's in the end of the staff report.
Yeah.
We detailed all of the conditions as requested in the update. So if one of you wants to pull up the motion language on one device and the other sitting next to you wants to pull up the actual conditions in the update, maybe that could be a solution.
I'm on page 61, so we are right now.
26, 30, I'm trying to still get to the end.
Another alternative would be to make the motions with the condition as stated. The applicant shall work with the town attorney and town engineer to address the outstanding issues, and you can reference the enumerated conditions 1 through 10 or whatever they are in the motion to be more clear. So I think that was the original intent, was with each of these conditions, whether it was for the plat or the preliminary plan, was to simply state that there are outstanding conditions and the applicant needs to work with staff to resolve those. You had asked us to enumerate all of those outstanding comments or things that still need to be wrapped up. So I still think those conditions 1 through 5 in your original staff report, which is 104 through 105, could capture those. But I also recommend that you would reference the update memo and conditions 1 through 10. Does that make sense?
And the update memo is on page 61.
Yes,
Yep,
starts on
it's,
61.
yeah, proposed list of conditions. And there are
There are 10 total, I believe.
yeah.
And is that where the additional would be added?
So if we
After
made,
10.
the motion, we have to read this whole thing? Or, okay,
You just reference conditions.
okay.
We could have had them do it, at least the midnight.
Yeah, right, the freshman over here.
I'm
You
not
can, you
sitting
can,
through 30 minutes of him reading conditions.
yeah,
But, okay. Oh, if you can't read the conditions, you can't. I apologize.
well, I thought,
You can read them.
no, because Jenna has accused herself, so does that mean?
It doesn't mean that you bump up to a voting member since you weren't necessary to establish the quorum. So at this point, it would just be 4 people voting.
She just.
Can I later read it?
That's,
You're going to reference the 10.
yeah, for the record, it's all good.
So Tom,
We
you
ready
want to take that again?
Are we ready to throw down on this?
Yeah, dude, do it.
No cat calls from the audience, please. All right, so on that note, 3 different animals here to re-verify: the development plan, the preliminary plat, and the zone district amendment, with 2 additional items, which is the updated staff supplement and the 2-week staffing process, correct? Those are our 3 items.
Yes.
Is that correct?
Well, hold on.
Tom, just to reiterate, these have to be 3 separate motions. So the first one.
I got you. I got you.
Okay.
I got you.
Where,
All right, so I make a move that the Minturn Planning Commission approve with conditions the Belden Place preliminary development plan for PUD as the applicant conforms as conditioned to the applicable criteria and standards of the Minturn Municipal Code and Minturn Community Plan, with the additional condition, I believe it falls in here, correct me if I'm wrong, of a 2-week staffing process between applicant, town staff, and the county housing authority to determine alternative funding sources for current plan objective of 200% AMI differential, as well as the current updated staffing supplements. So that is the first motion for the preliminary development plan.
That's fine. I did have some suggested language on that additional condition, but if you guys are happy with Tom's condition language, that works.
Where is that additional?
I just wrote it down on a piece of paper.
This?
No, he's got one.
If you guys are okay with Tom's language, I don't need to read it.
It was the ones Tom stated.
So I think there's a motion on the table. You guys probably need to, is there a second?
No.
Okay, take a second and then you can have second, you can have further conversation.
May I have a second?
Second.
Motion by Tom, second by Jeff. Scott, would you like to converse on that?
Okay, so what I had written down earlier was the applicant shall work with the town of Minturn staff and the Eagle County Housing and Development Authority staff to identify viable alternatives to enhance and or amend the Belden Place Attainable Housing Program with regard to level 2 deed restricted units to the extent practical in the next 2 weeks or to some date certain.
And add to that, if unable to reach an agreement, those 4 units identified in the PUD convert to RO.
That's fine.
Madison, did you get that? Please and thank you. You're so fast. Okay, so do we need to go back to take a roll call vote? Okay. Roll call vote. Tom,
Aye.
Jeff,
Aye.
Lynn, aye.
Chris, aye.
One down, 2 to go.
All right, I move the Minturn Planning Commission approve with conditions the Belden Place preliminary plat because the application conforms as conditioned to the applicable criteria and standards of the Minturn Municipal Code and Minturn Community Plan with the additional condition delineated in the supplemental staff report.
May I have a second?
I'll second. Chris.
And with that, may I have a roll call vote? Tom,
Aye.
Jeff,
Aye.
Lynn, aye.
Chris, aye.
And last but not least, I move the Minturn Planning Commission approve with conditions the zone district amendment from South Residential Zone District to the PUD Overlay Zone District because the application conforms as conditioned to the applicable criteria and standards of the Minturn Municipal Code and Minturn Community Plan with the additional conditions delineated in the staff supplement report.
May I have a second?
Second.
Motion by Tom, second by Jeff. Roll call. Tom,
Aye.
Jeff,
Aye.
Lynn, aye.
Chris, aye.
We did it.
You're the first official PUD that's gotten this far in a long time.
This is so much better than the railroad PUD, non-PUD.
Hey, Greg might still be out there.
No, thank you everyone for your time. I really
Yes.
appreciate it. We can answer any questions at any time. Just know, go moving forward, assuming that town council also supports this project. We will have open houses and things like that, and we hope you guys can attend, and we hope you tell your friends that there's an opportunity to maybe get out of a rental and buy a house or upgrade into something different. It's just, we believe in this project so much. It just means the world.
Congratulations.
Thank you all very, very much. Appreciate
you.
all your feedback.
Thanks.
It's been good to work with you guys and we'll see you next week.
Sounds good. We'll see you then. Good night. Tom, get lots of sleep.
Jenna?
Yes, ma'am.
We're not done.
Question.
Jenna, I would like to remind you that if
you are changing anything that is going for council meeting tomorrow.
I understand. You're on my radar and I already have a list and a timing on that.
Awesome, thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay.
All right, nothing personal, but I'm going to leave you guys. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Allison. Good night.
Good night.
Good night.
Okay,
You as
Jenna,
well.
rejoin
Yes.
us, please.
I am reappointing myself as back into the planning commission.
Thank you. Project updates, chapter 16, zoning code amendment.
Nothing to report.
Okay, can we make a note that when we do go there, we talk about that 16, whatever parking thing?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Parking on Main Street.
Yeah,
16, whatever.
so I've got it here somewhere, but
All those things.
I can get that to Jim. I can get it.
I wish
Madison
I had
knows.
paper. None of my electronic stuff
In
works.
the regard to the parking on the street for businesses, if you read that, it isn't clear enough. It's convoluted and it needs to be straightened out. Huh?
So weird.
I know. It's sort of like when we did the bulk plane, it was one thing here and one thing here. If you read that little section on parking in front of giving parking spaces on Main Street to businesses and how that is done, it's very good stuff.
I saw an aerial photograph the other day of all the cars parked back behind where our park is now, like behind the first, where Anglers used to be. In the back alley on Eagle Street, the first turn. It's now where it used to be. It's cars parked. Like way back, we were all frightened about it.
Something good.
Hey guys, we can't hear you. Not sure where we're at.
No more gibberish.
Okay.
Okay, number 2, planning director report and minor DRB approvals by Director of Minturn North preliminary plan application status.
Also nothing to report, other than I believe they're requesting a continuance. They asked for some more time to get us what we've asked for. So I don't see that project getting reviewed on June 23rd. It's more than it's going to be more like July 20.
July 20. Okay. So future meetings, June 23rd. Is anybody not going to be here?
I will be here on that television.
Okay, so you will be recusing yourself. Jenna, will you be here at the table?
I will be at the table.
Okay.
I'm gonna switch places with Jen.
We'll just trade.
Were you about
I have a question. They're asking for an extension of how long, Scott?
About a month.
A month.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm really not in favor of this, and here's why. Because I look at it as kind of, we're making an uninformed decision at this point, and hear me out on this one. We spelled out the POD process, so why not let the process unfold? And where I'm going with this is, why can they not provide the answers or what they can provide, as well as a status update on what they can't? And why I'm going with that is, you know, back at the open house, which wasn't really an open house, they're telling folks to put money on the table that they're going to be breaking ground this summer. So I look at it at this point that we have somewhat of a fiduciary responsibility to have a clearer picture on some pretty basic questions and issues that have been put down. So what is outside the realm of the possible to meet as planned at the 60-day mark, and Greg and crew present what they have, and we discuss and decide in regards to further extension or whatever we're looking at, because there's some pretty significant items on the table that honestly, Scott, are they going to come up with legitimate fidelity in another month?
Tom, that's a great point. There's a couple things. So the code allows them to request and for the planning commission to grant continuances. And so it is up to the planning commission to grant those continuances. It's not carte blanche. I'm not sure I can address or answer some of your questions, but you can ask for one to do that subsequent.
Well, I'm driving at, they just show up as already agreed upon and voted upon on the continuance in 2 weeks, present what they have, and we vote again for another continuance. Or if we're really unhappy with what's being provided at that point, we revisit what we're looking at here. But I don't see why we would deviate from the process. We agreed to 60 days. Let's see where we're at in 60 days and revote. That's my position.
Tom, to clarify, staff had set a deadline of submission of May 28th if they wanted to, if they were still aiming to get on the June 23rd meeting. So that staff could have enough time to go through and evaluate what has been submitted. If they've done what they said they've done, to create staff report for y'all's benefit and put the packet together. And if we ask them to now come and present what they have, that does not give staff any time to analyze what's actually been done between the last meeting and now.
And I'm tracking that, Madison. I am. And so that brings another question, which is, so realistically, they don't have 60 days. They have back plan. They were due by last Friday, correct?
I believe so, yes, sir.
So realistically, they have, and this is just for process purposes, we grant anybody a continuance of 60 days. The reality is they have 45 days, or actually less than that. True.
What we did, if we recall, that wasn't the furthest date out. I think that was
the middle date out.
Yeah, it was the middle date out. So we could have pushed them out a
Right,
little further, but they didn't want to.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So 60 and 90. And I'm tracking all that, Madison. I understand that. And that's why, at least from a board standpoint, this is a pretty significant development. I do not see it being unreasonable to at least have that face-to-face discussion with the commission and the developer at the agreed upon date. If it's nothing more than a continuance, I realize we don't get the same fidelity on the staffing report prior to the board, but as opposed to kicking it down the road for another month and we have no idea what's going on. And as noted before, there's some pretty big irons in this fire that I would personally like to hear where we are at on those particular items, not the least of which is Union Pacific.
So Tom and Scott and Madison, I feel you. You know, I think that it's you just want an update. You don't think it's fair to just let that date go by and not give us some information as to where you're at, even if it's not something that the staff has reviewed. You would rather hear it from the horse's mouth where we're at on specific issues.
Yes.
And Madison and Scott, does our code allow for that kind of a conversation to happen?
Well,
based on a continuance?
Yeah, I mean, the code, unfortunately, I think is not as clear as it could be. You know, typically what happens is that the applicant provides a written request for continuance. And we have one written request to allow them more time past May 28th. We received that in an email.
They officially requested it.
Correct.
Prior to May 28th.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, they didn't just blow us off. I've been in contact with them constantly. I'm sure. You know, they're trying to pull their pieces together and all that stuff. But they're not there yet. And from my perspective, it doesn't make a lot of sense for us to spend more time working to generate a staff report or something like that until we do have that. That was the whole goal, is to, we have a list of issues and outstanding things that, you know, either are major issues or minor issues. It's their job to respond to that. So they're still working on that. To Tom's point though, what normally would happen is there's a request and then there's an opening of the hearing again, and the applicant can be there and give an update or just say, you know, per our written request, we're here tonight to ask for a continuance. if at that meeting there needs to be, or there's a desire to have an update, I think the applicant would be happy to do that. But the end goal would be to continue, unless the planning commission decides otherwise.
So since we didn't open that tonight, it sounds like we should do that at the next meeting.
Well, they were scheduled for June 23rd, right? So they still owe me a written request to table for it to continue past June 23rd. And if you're saying that you would like them to appear on the 23rd and give an update as to what their progress is, I think that's entirely appropriate.
I think that's what Tom's saying at a minimum.
Yeah.
A question, Scott. By tabling to what would you want them to be continued to? I mean, how, and I think this is kind of piggybacks off what Tom's saying, like, what's the realistic? We gave them a chunk of time and they couldn't pull it together. Is what, you know what I'm saying? Like, what would be the anticipated date out they would need to pull this together? And we're talking probably like at least what, 85%? You know what I mean? To a certain, do you think they can do it in a month or 2 months? Like, what do you think?
Well,
Open your crystal ball.
yeah, you know, I thought we could get there. I thought we might have some resolution, some of these things by May 28th. What they've asked for now tentatively is the end of June. So an additional month to get what we've asked for in a digestible form, all in one package, right? As a response to all those conditions or outstanding issues. And then they've identified July 28th as a potential planning commission date where we would have enough time to review their resubmission from June 28th to middle of July and produce a staff report that addresses all those things and is more comprehensive.
But what it sounds like what you just said, though, you're going to have enough time to go through and analyze everything. And it sounds like you're waiting on a lot of information. Does that work with staff on their timeline, or I'm just trying to get to the root so we don't have to keep continuing? Do you know what I mean?
I do understand. And I guess one thing is, I don't know that if the main, or if the issue in front of us right now is that they have not met the May 28th date, and they're still on the hook to come on June 23rd, and they're going to request a continuance, that's one stop along the way. And we
sure.
At that time ask them what's realistic. We might have a better understanding from them over the next 2 weeks, because they have submitted some materials to us for those. So, you know, I guess what I'm saying is your point is well taken. Maybe we shouldn't get hung up on whether they need an extra month or they need 3 months. Maybe on June 23rd, we'll know that they can't do it in time for July 28th meeting, and the continuance date is further into August or September.
Yeah.
I don't know enough right now.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, I think that, and it's a very important project. It's a very significant project, and we just want to make sure that it's going to work right. We don't want to spin wheels if they're coming up against something that's impassable, and we just want to make sure we know where they're at. So there are a lot of people that are interested in this project. It's very high profile, and we just, you know what I mean? We just want to do everything the best we can possibly do for both the public and staff and the applicant themselves. I think I agree. I think it would be great for them to come in on the 23rd and tell us where they're at and give us a rundown and really a really realistic expectation if we're going to, you know, consider another continuance, what that date is, to give you guys enough room. That's all I'm suggesting. I think Tom's kind of right on that one.
And I certainly appreciate that, and so does Madison. So.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, they provide, or they, like I said, we're trying to stick to a process. The process is you have a 60-day continuance. You didn't provide staff this information. You show up at the council, you request a continuance, and it's completely within our purview at that point to ask questions in regards to status of outstanding issues that were supposed to be provided. And at that point, we can make a determination on continuance or other issues. I think that's completely in line with our process.
Keep in mind that staff is going to be unable to opine on how well they've addressed any of the outstanding conditions because we wouldn't have received a package. So you can ask the applicant how they think they're doing. We're not going to be wiser because we don't have that information. I don't anticipate that they're going to supply us with a response, a comprehensive response by the week before that meeting of June 23rd.
Well, some of these are simple yes, no questions. I hear what you're saying, Scott. I got it.
Yep.
But pretty simple. For example, access from Union Pacific, yes or no? It's not hard. So I got the staff fidelity applied to it, but I don't think it's unreasonable to have this significant development, considering it's kind of groundbreaking scale wise for this town, to provide an update at the 60-day mark, which was what they originally agreed to. And as noted previously, in other areas are pursuing deposits, et cetera, with the expectation that they're going to get busy this summer. Having a 30-day extension or more does not implicate that. So it begs the question, where are you at? I would like to know.
Okay.
Is this something we need to ask for? So do you want an opinion from, we don't need to vote on it?
No, I think if the planning commission is in agreement that that's something we would like to see, then we'll let the applicant know that they should be here on the 23rd and be prepared to give an update.
I think that's fair.
If the only,
I mean, it might be worthless.
well, my concern is that it is an opportunity for the he said, she said. If the applicant feels that they've addressed 70 out of 100 or 50 out of 100 of those issues, and we can't confirm that because we don't have a response from them in the form of updated plans, updated reports, whatever it is. I don't want to get into a back and forth with the applicant. I think it's, so you have to be pretty focused on some of the questions about where are you with this issue. That's one of my concerns.
Like we're gonna step in it.
Well, yeah.
You don't want to say something that can and may be used against you. Sort of.
Yeah, I mean, again, we have right now a file that we've gone multiple rounds of. These are our issues, and this is the applicant's response, and we've said, no, that's not a response. You haven't answered the question, or you haven't provided us what we asked for, or you didn't make the change that you said you were going to do.
Which all boils down to
until we get a complete package.
Right, that's what
we can verify that, yes, okay, you did do that. Great, let's move on to the next one. I'm not sure what, I'm concerned that we would get into that situation in a continuance hearing or a appearance by the applicant from the commission. They could report that they've addressed this, that, and the other thing, and we're going to be.
And then it's on us.
Yeah.
Because
We're not going to be well
our
armed.
decision to decide whether it's a completed package or not.
Right.
It's not up to the applicant to decide that.
Right.
Get that. Tom, what's your thoughts on that?
I'm sticking with the 23rd, man. I understand all that. I got it. And just the exact same argument you just used, Scott, I want it on public record. Some of there needs to be a little sunshine to this equation, and it doesn't need to be delayed for another month and a half from today. So I recommend that they show up on the 23rd. We're not going to step in it. We're going to keep it focused to the questions that are as of record right now that are outstanding requirements for resubmittal from the applicant and go down that road. And if the answers are adequate to include just status, then we're going to vote on a continuance and a duration of time for that continuance. I say that's the process. I got the staff part, but as I said earlier, that also highlights the fact that any applicant now doesn't actually have 60 days based on what we're talking about here. The reality is they have 40 on a 60-day metric because they have to have all their answers in for a staff report that far out. It's quite a ways. So, I mean, that's kind of something we want to know going in. So the reality is, applicant A, are you prepared to provide all answers in 40 days? And we're going to mull over this for 2.5 weeks. So I'm not in favor of the continuance approval here. I would like them to show on the 23rd, have that conversation, and then as a group, move forward from there.
Tom, just to be clear, we're not being asked to act on a continuance request tonight. That would officially happen on the 23rd.
Right. They're asking for an extension though. Correct?
They already have asked for an extension to get us the information that we requested.
I understand that. And so tonight, or we're saying that's already been approved, or if we say no, they're showing up on the 23rd with what they have for clarification, which is it?
They have requested, they let us know that they weren't going to give us the materials by May 28th. That day has passed.
Right.
They have not officially requested a continuance. They need to do that in writing, at which on the 23rd is when you would act on that. Whether you want them to appear and tell you why, I would expect them to be there anyways, and it's entirely appropriate for you to ask them questions as to why they're asking for a continuance and why they didn't get us information on the 28th, and how much more time they will explain.
And that's what I would like to occur.
Okay.
What if they do nothing? What if they don't send you the letter asking for the continuance? Then where are we?
Then you're in a position where we would be basically right back to a recommendation for denial. Or you can encourage the applicant to withdraw their application.
But there's been communication, I mean.
Yeah.
Yeah, but there's a process.
I just don't want to see us get into it and we're asking a bunch of questions that we don't have the proper information on. And we got it.
To clarify, as we go into the hearing on the 23rd, staff will still be recommending denial because we don't have the information. It's not up to staff to recommend continuance. The applicant can ask for continuance and the planning commission can grant it. Staff will still be recommending denial.
Well, you know, there in my career, tabling used to mean the applicant never showed up. It would just be like an automatic thing where the staff would go in and present it, and you know, the boards would act on it. In this case, we are just clarifying that it's not an automatic tabling. It's air continuance. They come to request that tabling on the 23rd, which in that case, we do have the ability to ask them limited questions, not specific questions because there is no analysis and staff's recommending denial, but we could ask them how certain things. That's what it's coming down to. Correct?
Right.
Yeah. Okay. So yes, Tom, what you want to do will have to happen at that time, unless I don't show up on the 23rd, in which case staff's already recommending a denial, and then it moves to town council for denial.
Right. And I'm just driving at the way it's presented here was a request for an extension of 30 days
Right.
which would immediately segue into your automatic tabling, as you alluded to earlier,
Correct.
which I don't agree with. So
Right.
I'm just making sure. I think we're all in agreement. 23rd, I highly recommend you show up, or this could not go well.
Correct. First, they have to apply or in writing, and then they have to show up to actually ask for that tabling. It's not
And
automatic.
for clarification, how far in advance must they apply in writing prior to the board meeting?
To clarify, one way or another, they would have to show up.
Yeah.
One way or another, you can have, they would probably be asking for an extension. One way or another, you would have to vote on them. Questions that would be posed at that would have to be very limited in oversight. Is that correct? Like, can you tell us why you need the extension?
Yeah.
Not detailed, but an overall, because we didn't do this like that, we didn't do that, we didn't answer here or there. It will not be detailed answer. So,
No, but to Tom's point, I think it also would be fair to ask for status updates on some of the major outstanding issues like legal actions. Just a small detail.
just a small detail.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we're allowed to talk about everything that they already presented on the record, which does, which is, that's what Tom's getting at. You know, they've opened that can of worms by coming to their first hearing that they were not equipped to handle. So
Let's just
Move on.
move
no,
on.
we know, but yeah, there was a question. I don't think to answer there was one question that Tom posed. When do they have to give that writing request to make the 23rd happen? I don't think that the code has any, you could do it the day of, correct?
I don't know that the code has a.
I don't think so.
But I'll take a look.
I think they could do it on the morning of the 23rd, and they'd still have to show up with that continuance request.
Show up at the meeting.
So now I'm just eating popcorn. It's just a nail biter. That's all. It's getting exciting.
Can I have a motion to end the meeting of
I'll make a motion to end the meeting, the planning and zoning meeting on June 9th at 10 after 10 p.m.
May I have a second, please?
Second.
Motion by Chris, second by Jeff. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you, guys. Have a great night.
Tom, what time is it over there?
7.
It is 07:09 in the morning, and I'm gonna go eat my combination breakfast dinner and then go to bed.
All right. You're the best. Thanks for your